Chapter 202. Ninjas weren't immortals or ghosts. They were also human beings. Like spies and killers, they were just a more special profession compared to teachers, students, programmers, and advertising planners. Beginner ninjas were genin, and those who knew strategy and assassination were jonins. That was all. As long as they were human beings, they could be killed. Therefore, Fang Yan wasn't afraid. He knew that the ninja's target was him, but he was also worried that if the ninja found that he couldn't kill the target, would he vent his anger on the innocent students in the private room? Fang Yan's worry wasn't superfluous. Just as he was thinking about this, a sharp sword energy slashed toward Jiang Qin sitting next to him. The private room was like a sealed black box. Only murderous intent could be smelled, but no light could be seen. Obviously, the ninja changed the way of attack or smeared some black material on the blade to make it lose its bright color. The blade and the darkness merged into one, becoming a ghost that harvested lives. Fang Yan closed his eyes and sat on the sofa without moving. The killer chose to attack Jiang Qin, which made him calm down. This didn't mean that he didn't care about Jiang Qin. It was because he knew that the ninja didn't really kill people. If he had wanted to kill these students, he could have chosen to attack the students who were far away from Fang Yan or the children who were sitting next to him. Why would he choose to attack Jiang Qin, who was in close proximity to Fang Yan? He wanted to create chaos and shake Fang Yan's heart. When Fang Yan saved him in a hurry, he was looking for an opportunity to attack Fang Yan. He just wanted to kill Fang Yan. This was also the result that Fang Yan was happy to accept. When masters fought, it wasn't just about the strength of the two sides, but also the ability to judge the situation and the wisdom to fight. Fang Yan didn't intercept the ninja's sword. He picked up a bottle of beer in front of him and threw it toward the place where the murderous intent was the strongest. At the same time, his body jumped up and rushed behind the bottle. Crack! The long saber once again cut open the bottle. Then, without any hesitation, he stabbed at Fang Yan, who was behind the bottle. If it hit, Fang Yan would definitely be pierced through by this attack. However, Fang Yan didn't seem to be aware of this danger. He just rushed towards the long black saber in a daze. He was just like an idiot, boorish fool. If one could see it with the naked eye, one would find that Fang Yan's sprinting speed was very fast. Like a spirit fox and a cunning rabbit, like thunder rumbling in the 9 continents, lightning flashing for 9,000 li. Moreover, his body seemed to be running in a straight line, but this straight line was just an illusion. With a single step, his silhouette split apart. One was real and the other was real. It was hard to tell which one was real. Drunken Crane Rides the Wind. This was one of the Fang clan's Tai Chi footwork. It was derived from the original 3 crazy steps by the famous drunkard in the family when he was drunk. The body split into 3, and the 3 gave birth to millions. It was hard to fathom. Many people suffered a great loss when fighting against it. This was also the reason why no one dared to look down on the old drunkard even though he was in dire straits. Who knew if this was an alternative cultivation method that he used to isolate his spirit and self-destruct his physique? How could anyone look down on the #1 martial artist in the past? Fang Yan had a close relationship with the old drunkard since he was young. Even after the old drunkard's temperament had changed, he could still talk to him. This was also the reason why he could learn this drunken crane riding the wind. In this world, there were only 3 people who knew this drunken crane riding the wind. It wasn't that people didn't want to learn it, but those who knew it didn't want to teach it. Needless to say, the old drunkard only cared about wine. He didn't care about family affairs. Every day, he lived in a drunken stupor. He spent more time sober than drunk. The other 2 people who learned this drunken crane riding the wind were Yi Ro and Fang Yan. Yi Ro also liked wine, and she could drink a lot without getting drunk. Every time the old drunkard wanted someone to drink with him, Yi Ro was the most suitable person. The 2 of them got to know each other through drinking. It seemed that the relationship between Yi Ro and the old drunkard was even deeper than the relationship between Fang Yan and the old drunkard. Who asked Fang Yan to be unwilling to drink with the old drunkard? Yi Ro knew this drunken crane riding the wind, but even if they knew she knew it, who would dare to ask her to learn it? Fang Yan also knew it. He had thought of teaching this footwork to Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. But the result wasn't ideal. They knew the 3 crazy steps like the back of their hands, and it was effortless for them to move. But when this drunken crane riding the wind was used, they would either fall on the spot or be like a fat pig facing a skinny sheep. They would stumble, and there was no power at all. Drunken crane riding the wind. The crane needed to be drunk first before it could find the feeling of riding the wind. Drunk wasn't really drunk, but intoxicated. It was forgetting it was muddle-headed, and it was part of nature. So, the ninja slashed at Fang Yan. Missed. So, he retracted his blade at lightning speed. Slashed again. Missed again. So, the 3rd slash. Still missed. So, blade chi filled the air, and killing intent filled the room. But no matter how the ninja slashed and slashed, he couldn't touch Fang Yan's body at all. He couldn't add a leaf, and he couldn't drop a feather. This was the highest realm of Tai Chi, and also the true meaning of drunken crane riding the wind. The blade didn't have blade light, but it had killing intent. Sword chi was also chi, and with chi, there was strength. Fang Yan's body was like a leaf or a feather. Before the blade arrived, the chi was released, and Fang Yan's body had already dodged in advance. If you slapped a balloon with your palm, the balloon would have already flown away before your palm hit it. It was the same principle as drunken crane riding the wind. One move first, one step ahead. Taking the initiative and seizing the opportunity. The ninja slashed and retracted his blade extremely quickly. Countless blade chi surrounded his body, making it hard for Fang Yan to advance. But an empty blade hurt the spirit, and it also hurt the strength. It wasn't a solution to keep slashing like this. As a ninja who could appear and disappear unpredictably, he almost misunderstood that he had met someone of the same kind who was more skilled than him. His blade was like a torrential rain, but why couldn't he keep up with Fang Yan's rhythm? Fang Yan's body extended, and he flashed behind the ninja, dodging 37 consecutive slashes, and punched at the ninja's unguarded heart. Boom, a strong wind blew, and Fang Yan clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. This punch was as heavy as a mountain, and when it attacked, it was like a huge meteorite pressing down on the ninja's chest. The ninja turned around and spun 360 degrees to attack. Fang Yan didn't dodge, and his fist of flesh and blood destroyed heaven and earth. The ninja also didn't dodge, and the blade of his long blade cut through the air, destroying everything. Fang Yan's fist sped up again. The fist was shorter than the blade, but it arrived before the blade. As long as his fist hit the ninja's body, penetrating his body, smashing his chest, and sending his body flying, the ninja's blade probably wouldn't be able to hit him. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past. The fist missed. The blade disappeared. The person also disappeared. A shadow flashed at the door, and the room was quiet again. In this narrow space, the two of them fought fiercely, but they didn't hurt the students at all. In their eyes, this mustard seed space was as majestic as Mount Meru, and they couldn't see the end of it. The door of the room was pushed open, and a waitress in uniform stood at the door and asked, "What are you doing in this room? Why don't you turn on the lights?" The light from outside shone in, and everyone in the room felt like they had seen the light of day again. The heavy stuffiness in his chest disappeared, and so did the fear that made him feel like he was about to go crazy. They didn't know what had happened, but they knew it must have been something bad. It was like a ghost, a real ghost, mingling with them. They couldn't identify it, and they couldn't escape, so they could only stay in the room with the ghost. "Turn on the lights," Fang Yan explained. "We're playing a little game. Clap, clap, clap." Before Fang Yan finished explaining, the waitress had taken the initiative to turn on all the lights in the room. She stared at Fang Yan and the students in the room with unkind eyes. After seeing that their clothes were intact, and there was nothing unusual on their bodies, her face softened a little, but her voice was still cold as she warned, "We have a rule here that pornography, gambling, and drugs are prohibited in the room. Once found, we will immediately call the police." Pornography, gambling, and drugs? Fang Yan smiled bitterly. What kind of people did she think they were? When the waitress saw the situation in the room, her face became extremely embarrassed again. She quickly walked to the middle of the room, pointed at the marble coffee table that was cut in two, and asked in a sharp voice, "What's going on? How did the coffee table become like this? What are you playing? Oh my God, the sofa is also cracked. You also cut the sofa? And the microphone and the wall?" Fang Yen waved his hand to stop her from continuing to shout and said, "We will pay. All compensation." Getting the answer she wanted, the waitress tactfully shut up. The club manager also came, took a computer to calculate, and asked Fang Yen to compensate them 25,000 yuan. Of course, the original thing was not worth this price, but they had a price list in the club. This price was naturally several times more expensive than the actual price. Wang Lin took out her wallet and wanted to pay the bill, but Fang Yen handed over his bank card. Ninja came because of him. How could he let a little girl pay for him? After dealing with things here, Fang Yen looked at Wang Lin and Jiang Qin and said, "You two go back and think about it. Don't make a decision easily. I think, since Miss Xia values you, she is willing to give you more time to think. It's very late, you should go back and rest early." Jiang Qin and Wang Lin looked at Fang Yen, nodded silently and left. Especially Jiang Qin, she guessed something happened in the room, but she was smart enough not to ask. When the students left, Fang Yen looked at Xia and said, "Do you need me to take you back? Are you a gentleman?" Just. Fang Yen thought for a moment and said, "I am a master's." On the marble floor under their feet, there were spots of bright red blood. Chapter 203. The night wind was getting cold. She was only wearing a small black dress in the summer, and it was obvious that she couldn't resist the chill of the city. In particular, the intense and exciting things that happened in the private room just now made her body soak in a layer of cold sweat. Now that her body was cooling down and her sweat was cold, she felt even colder. She grabbed the white shawl on her shoulders with both hands, as if it would warm her up a little. "Take a taxi back?" Fang Yen saw her embarrassed look and said softly, "Take 2 steps. Xia said. She didn't have a RV property in this city, so she was picked up by a driver when she went out. When she came out of Sky One, she didn't call the driver to arrange a car. Now, she wouldn't call the driver out of her house. The driver also had his own life. Fang Yen walked on the right side of the wind, so that he could help her block the wind a little. He said, "I also thought of taking off my coat and giving it to you, but I'm afraid that you'll refuse and make me feel awkward." "You haven't tried. How do you know I'll refuse?" Xia asked. Fang Yen looked at Xia Ji from the side and saw a pair of bright and gentle beautiful eyes. This girl's eyes are so beautiful. After thinking about it, Fang Yen found a problem. In fact, most beautiful women had beautiful eyes. Qin Yiyan, Jiang Qin, Wang Lin, and even Lu Chaoga. The eyes were the window to the human heart. If a person's eyes were ugly, then no matter how exquisite the woman's facial features were, she could only be called a beauty with personality. Thus, Fang Yen took off her black coat. Xia didn't hold back and naturally took it and draped it over her shoulders. "I feel much better," Xia Ji said with a smile. "I often take the coat from the boy when I'm acting. This is the first time something like this has happened in real life. Is this also acting?" Fang Yen asked. Xia Ji frowned slightly as he looked at Fang Yen and said, "Fang Yen, I found that you are very aggressive." Fang Yen smiled bitterly and shook her head. "It's probably because I'm not in a good mood. Can you tell me now? Who's he?" Xia asked as he looked at Fang Yen with a burning gaze. "I don't know," Fang Yen said. He knew Summer would ask this question. He could send away Jiang Qin and Wang Lin, he could send away those students, but it wasn't that easy to deal with Xia Chen. "You don't know either?" Xia Keek's pretty eyebrows furrowed again. "Although his goal is to attack you, he's also trying to hurt me while attacking you. Do you need help?" Fang Yen glanced at Xia Ji and said, "Yes. I don't need it either. I need you to help me find him." "I don't need you to do anything," Fang Yen said. "He's very strong. Don't make unnecessary sacrifices." "Understood." Summer nodded. Jiang Qin and Wang Lin are both good seedlings. That's their business. If you really like them, you can have a good talk with them. Fang Yen said, "I won't make decisions for their lives. Because I can't afford it. But I can see that they trust you very much. Because I'm their teacher. The teacher who thinks he's pretty good. You have to help me with the new album. I need to think about that. Xia Chen was a little anxious and said, Fang Yan, you're really making me suffer like this? I can find other Tai Chi experts, I can find a replacement. However, I clearly know that there's a better choice, and I clearly know that you're the most suitable. After seeing you play Tai Chi, how can I choose someone else? Fang Yan thought for a moment and said, It's quite difficult. If you don't show up, I'll feel that my work isn't the most perfect. It's the same feeling before the preparation, and it's the same feeling after the work comes out. Even if I think about it many years later, it might still feel like this. I'm a Virgo, and the thing I'm most afraid of is imperfection and regret in life. Promise me, you can make any conditions, okay? Fang Yan said. What conditions? Conditions are conditions. I can make any conditions. Fang Yan said. Before the ninja entered the house, Xia Chen's words really touched Fang Yan a lot. He talked about calligraphy, tea ceremony, guixue, tradition, and education. In fact, it was also to instill the profound culture of Wuxia to the students, so that these students could pass it on from generation to generation and carry it forward. Xia Chen was a star. She sang and acted, but she was also doing the same thing as Fang Yan. Moreover, her influence was far greater than that of Fang Yan. You agreed? Xia Chen asked in surprise. Sort of. Fang Yan said. It's just a scene. I don't think too many people will pay attention to it. This way, I'll solve my problem of becoming famous. Fang Yan, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Xia Chen said with a smile. She waved her hand and a taxi stopped beside her. Xia Ji opened the door and got in. When Fang Yan wanted to follow, the door of the taxi closed with a bang. Don't you need me to send you back? Fang Yan asked with a smile. I'm not that delicate. Xia Ji said with a smile. Go back and rest. There's no need to make another trip. Xia Chen waved at Fang Yan, and the taxi drove away. Fang Yan smiled and walked in the opposite direction. Under the moonlight, in the cold wind, a boy with a cold expression was practicing his swordsmanship. In the courtyard, there was an ancient locust tree. The boy stabbed his sword at the tree with the thick trunk. Pa, pa, pa. One sword after another, Xianxia Haowu had already stabbed out 1,226 times. The same posture, the same angle, and even the same strength. Every night he would stab 3,000 times. This was the request of his father, the Xianxia Ministry of War. The world found it strange. The Xianxia family was famous for their saber, and Xianxia Zhou had used the Beichen One blade to bring the Japanese saber technique to a height that the world paid attention to. However, his descendant, the Xianxia Ministry of War, was good at using the sword. Everyone felt that there was something wrong with this person's head. If he didn't inherit such a good saber technique, why did he enter a field that he wasn't good at? While everyone was in doubt, the Xianxia Ministry of War traveled to the 17 islands of the East Ocean with his sword, challenging the Yidong Sword House, the Kaga Shadowless Sword, and the Itamoto Berserker sect. 3 battles, 3 victories, and 1 fell swoop to take the crown of the #1 swordsman in Japan. One had to know that the Yidong Sword House's master, Yidong Jun, was previously recognized as the #1 swordsman in Japan. The Xianxia Ministry of War had defeated him, so he naturally inherited this title. From then on, all doubts disappeared. However, there were still many people who felt strange. But he used a sword? The saber depends on the strength. The sword is heavy and exquisite. The Xianxia Ministry of War stood behind his son and watched. He carefully watched every thrust of Xianxia Haomu's sword. Xianxia Haomu thrust 1,226 times, and he also watched 1,226 times. Not a single strike was missed, as if each strike was an exquisite sword technique. Dressed in a white robe, his long hair was loose, and he stood ramrod straight. The gentle moonlight shone on his face, making his pale complexion look even whiter. There was a kind of divine light in his narrow eyes that made it hard for people to look up at him. Exquisite is born, but it also depends on hard training. 3,000 strikes a day, the same angle, the same speed, and the same strength. After 81 days, This move will become a part of your body. You don't have to think, and you don't have time to think. You just use this sword when you strike. Then I only know this one sword? Isn't one sword enough? The Xianxia Ministry of War said with a smile. What kind of neck needs 2 slashes to break? Wuxia has Daoism, and Daoists pay attention to the life of all things. However, the true great way of nature is that all things return to one. Wulong can see 18 changes in every strike you make, and Qin Yin can see 49 changes. I can see 3,910. Xianxia Haomu's hand trembled, and the sword in his hand almost fell out. The godlike experts in his heart, Inoue Wulong and Qin Yin, were actually so far behind his father? In the past, I could see at least 9,000 changes. The Xianxia Ministry of War's eyes were filled with infinite regret as he said, every additional strike is an illusion of a sword. Of these 3,910 strikes, 3,909 are illusions. When all these illusions disappear, the supreme sword path can be achieved. Xianxia Haomu quickly gathered his thoughts, raised his sword again, and thrust forward. He said, Father, do you mean that the more Wulong and Qin Yin can see, the better, and the less you need to see, the better? No, the less they need to see, the better. It's best if they can only see one strike, the original one. Then Father. Xianxia Haomu felt a little dizzy. It would have been fine if his father hadn't taught him, but why did he become more and more confused about what the essence of sword path was? All things in life. All things have not been born, so how can all things return to one? I understand, Xianxia Haomu said seriously. A sword is a sword. It's the sword that you thrust out. It's the sword that kills. It's the sword of law. It's 1,000 changes, 1,000 miracles, but the essence won't change. The Xianxia Ministry of War's voice was fascinated, and he said, This is why I came to Wuxia. Father, why did you come to Wuxia? Xianxia Haomu asked curiously. Wasn't his father here to avenge him? He wanted to beat up that little teacher named Feng Yan, and it would be best if he could cut his neck with a sword. If it wasn't for this reason, why would he immediately make the decision to move his family to China after he returned from a crushing defeat? To practice the sword. The Xianxia Ministry of War spat out these 2 words clearly. Chapter 204. To some, there was no end to being despicable. To some, there was no end to swordsmanship. Chiba Hayaburo was the best swordsman in Japan. He was an expert that others could only look up to. However, he still had his own pursuits and goals. He was learning swordsmanship now. One day, he would be able to attain supreme swordsmanship. This was his life, the meaning of living. Chiba Haomu stopped his sword and turned to look at Chiba Hayaburo. His eyes were filled with admiration and doubt. Father, why did you come to Wuxia to practice your swordsmanship? A girl's voice came from behind. Chiba Kaori had just taken a shower. She was wearing a traditional Japanese kimono decorated with cherry blossoms. She wore wooden clogs on her feet, revealing her 10 cute toes. Her wet hair draped over her shoulders. Her eyes were gentle, and she wore a charming smile on her face. She was a traditional Japanese woman. She was docile and humble, as if she would never disobey her husband. Chiba Hayaburo brought his children to Wuxia and arranged for them to go to their respective places. Chiba Kaori went to Rosefinch Secondary for an exchange program. Meanwhile, Chiba Haomu went to study swordsmanship under his personal guidance. The lives of the siblings were completely different. Chiba Hayaburo doted on Chiba Kaori. He looked at her and said, Go dry your hair. Chiba Kaori did not reply. Instead, she said, Father, you haven't answered my question. I'm invincible in Japan, Chiba Hayaburo said. Sailing against the current, one will either advance or fall behind. Everyone knows this. However, you have to sail against the current in order to pursue swordsmanship. An opponent worthy of respect can shorten your comprehension time by 3 to 5 months. An opponent who can defeat you can raise your cultivation level by 3 to 5 years. Father, are you saying that you'll encounter an opponent in Wuxia? Chiba Kaori asked sensitively. Chiba Hayaburo walked up to Chiba Kaori and carefully combed his daughter's hair. He smiled warmly and said, even if you don't want to admit it, Wuxia has thousands of years of accumulation. However, China has thousands of years of history, and there are many reclusive heroes and experts. There should be opponents worthy of respect. Chiba Kaori tilted her head to look at her father's side profile and said, Father, if you really meet an opponent worthy of respect, will you die? Die. Commander Chiba of the army thought about it seriously and said, knowing the way in the morning, one can die in the evening. No, Chiba Kaori said stubbornly, I don't want you to die. Then I won't die. Chiba nodded seriously as if he was making a promise. Then I'm going back to sleep, father, said Chiba Kaori with a charming smile. We still have morning classes tomorrow. Then he glanced at Xianxia Haowu and said, little brother, you have to practice well. Chiba Hoseki nodded and continued to stab forward with full concentration. One sword after another. Caw. The courtyard door was pushed open. A man dressed in black walked in. He was short, thin, and his head was hidden in his hoodie, making it hard to see what he looked like. Seeing Chiba, who was standing in the yard, the man walked over, bowed, and said, Master. You're injured, Chiba Shinobu said. Yes, the man answered honestly. No matter how good his disguise was, he couldn't deceive his master even if there was no blood on his face or body. There's a fire in your throat. Ask your master's wife to prescribe you some medicine, Chiba Shinobu said. Who can hurt you? Master, who can hurt you? Fang Yen, the man in black answered. Chiba Hoseki suddenly turned around and said, Qing Yin, did you go to see Fang Yen? Qing Yin was the eldest disciple of Chiba Shinobu. He was originally an IGA ninja. After failing to assassinate Chiba Shinobu, he was impressed by his swordsmanship, so he became his disciple and was willing to be his servant. Chiba Hoseki returned from Wuxia with serious injuries because he had a conflict with a teacher in Wuxia. After Qing Yin came to Wuxia, he immediately searched for information about Fang Yen and followed him all the way. He chose to make his move in a KTV box with limited space. I heard that he defeated Chiba Hoseki. I want to test his strength. You want to help Chiba Hoseki take revenge? Master, please punish me. The man apologized in a low voice. Because the action of lowering his head was too big, it once again affected the injury on his chest. With a muffled groan, he opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. Chiba Shinobu glanced at him and asked, What did he use to hurt you? His fist. Did his fist touch you? Qing Yin replied. Chiba Shinobu walked in front of Chiba Hoseki and said, You keep asking me when this swordsmanship will end. Yes, father. Chiba Shinobu walked to the side of the locust tree, pointed to its solid trunk, and said, Pierce it. Father. Chiba Shinobu looked stunned. The blade was not allowed to touch the tree trunk, and it was just a stab through the air. How could the tree trunk be pierced? Dripping water can wear a stone. At least let the water drop on the stone, right? He can do it. Chiba Shinobu knew what Chiba Hoseki was thinking and said aloud. Fang Yen. Chiba Hoseki gritted his teeth and asked. Yes. How strong is he? Chiba Hoseki asked. He's stronger than you think, Chiba Shinobu said. He injured Chiba Hoseki and Qing Yin. This young man, I'm really looking forward to it. At the end of the 2 Chinese classes in the morning, Fang Yen walked back to the office with his textbook. Seeing that there was a gap in the middle of the page, Fang Yen opened the gap and found an exquisitely folded paper crane lying there. Teacher Fang Yen, you're getting more and more handsome. I like you so much. It was still a row of beautiful handwriting, but it didn't belong to any of the students in the class. Because Fang Yen was good at calligraphy, he was able to memorize the handwriting of every student. As long as he saw the handwriting, he would know who wrote it. It was very accurate and he never missed it. Who is it? Fang Yen was full of doubts. Fang Yen didn't mind being liked by others. Being liked was something to be happy and proud of, but he was worried that it would affect this girl's academic performance. His cell phone on the table suddenly rang. Fang Yen pressed the answer button. It turned out to be a call from Principal Zhang Xiaofeng himself. What's the matter, Principal Zhang? Fang Yen asked. Teacher Fang Yan, are you in the office or outside? Zhang Xiaofeng asked. I just finished my class, Principal. I'm in the office now, Fang Yan said. Come to my office. I have something to discuss with you. I'll be there. In the principal's office, Zhang Xiaofeng warmly invited Fang Yan to sit down and personally ran to make a cup of good tea for Fang Yan. Fang Yan smiled and held the teacup, saying, What are you doing, Principal Zhang? This kind of thing should be done by us subordinates. How can you let the old leader do it for us? Zhang Xiaofeng waved and said, There are two problems in your words, Fang Yan. Do you know what the two problems are? I really don't know about this. Fang Yan said with a smile. Principal, give me some advice? First, I'm not an old leader. The only one who can be called an old leader of Rosefinch is your grandfather, Mr. Liu. Who in the education field doesn't regard Mr. Liu as their life idol? Principal Zhang is too modest. You are also our old leader, Fang Yan said. Although he knew that Zhang Xiaofeng was trying to build a relationship with him, he was still very excited to hear someone praise his grandfather and regard his grandfather as his life idol. This was the principle of flattery being the best. Second, who made the rule that subordinates must make tea for their superiors? Can't the principal make a cup of tea for the teacher? Anyone could sit in the headmaster's position, but not everyone could do the job of a teacher well. Otherwise, how can there be a difference between a famous teacher and a mediocre teacher? Therefore, you teachers are the treasures of our school, the core strength of our Rosefinch. We old guys can't do anything else, but it's not a problem to do logistics for you, right? Principal is too modest, Fang Yan said with a smile. He thought that if it wasn't because Lu Chaoga bought Rosefinch, if it wasn't because he had a close relationship with Lu Chaoga, perhaps the treasures and core strength would still have to pour tea for the old leader. This was the hidden social class. Many people were unwilling to admit it, but it really existed. It lasted for thousands of years, and it would continue. Is Mr. Fang's work going well? Zhang Xiaofeng asked in a friendly voice. It's going well, Fang Yan said with a smile. I like my job as a teacher very much. You're a talent. I've been thinking about giving you more responsibilities. You're young, how can you not exercise more? However, Director Liu is very protective of you. She said that you just have to focus on the work at hand. Since she said that, how can I have any objections? This is also the principal's love for me, Fang Yan said, feeling even more puzzled. What does this old fox want from me? It's like this. Recently, there have been more and more students' parents looking for me, and my phone is getting busier and busier. Among them, there are many important people that I had difficulty meeting in the past. I thought that the older I get, the more charming I become. Zhang Xiaofeng finally got to the point and said self-deprecatingly, Actually, they're looking for you. Looking for me? Fang Yan asked curiously. What a pitiful world of parents. Whether they're high-ranking officials or rich people, no matter what their parents' identities or how much wealth they have, in their hearts, their children's education is still the most important. They're looking for me for a common purpose, and that is to transfer their children to your class 9. Fang Yan didn't say anything, not because he was speechless, but because he was secretly happy. He felt that he had become a celebrity in Huaqing's education circle. In another 2 years, he should be about the same age as his grandfather, right? It's obviously impossible to transfer all of them to class 9, Zhang Xiaofeng said. Those with money and power can be transferred, but those without money and power can't be transferred? We can't do that. Fang Yan nodded firmly. We can't do that. We have to be fair and just. If we plant the seeds of unfairness and unfairness in the hearts of the students on this matter, when the students enter society in the future, this seed may also take root and germinate and bear the consequences. That's what I'm thinking, Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. So, I'm here to ask for your help. What can I do? Fang Yan asked. Have a big class, Zhang Xiaofeng said. Give all the first-year students a language class. Chapter 205. A big class for the entire first year? Fang Yan asked in surprise. He was no stranger to the big class model. Moreover, this kind of teaching method was very common in universities. Find a large lecture hall and gather the students of several classes of the same grade together for a unified teaching. Save the professor's time and manpower costs. However, Rosefinch was a high school, not a university. Fang Yen was very clear about what a big class in a university was like. Free, unorganized, and the sign-in rate was extremely high, but the actual number of people was very small. Very few students were studying seriously. University paid more attention to cultivating students' self-discipline and divergent thinking. For example, whether to wake up at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning, or whether to eat braised eggplant or casserole rice noodles for lunch, or whether to paste a note on the face of the two idiots from the next dormitory after winning landlord, or to make them shout, XX I love you, at the opposite dormitory building. Most of the XX were not good-looking internet celebrities. If the big class model was started in high school in advance and the students were suddenly released from a high-pressure state, would they still be able to focus on studying seriously? Yes. Zhang Xiaofeng nodded seriously. First, your Fang's teaching method has already shown initial results in Class 9, and even Class 1 has been surpassed by you. If you want to promote it to the whole school, the big class model is a very good choice. Just treat it as an early test. Second, we can completely kill the idea of the students' parents frequently moving around and the students' unstable minds wanting to jump from other classes to Class 9. The big class model treats everyone equally. What's there to jump from? If I give a big class to the entire grade, what about the other language teachers in the first year's Chinese team? Fang Yen asked aloud. Obviously, this was a job that would offend people. If Fang Yen gave a big class to all the first-year students, how could the other language teachers endure it? They are still the language teachers of each class. You have 4 big classes a week, and the rest of the time, the language teachers of each class will lead the students to study. There's not much change from before. It's like writing a novel. You make the outline of the story, and they lead the students to write according to the outline. I think the students might not be used to this kind of learning style. Mr. Fang, when you brought Class 9 students to the Bird River to learn poetry, all of us, with the exception of Chairman Lu Chaoga, felt that the students weren't used to that kind of learning method. Your actions were nonsense. However, it turns out that our horizons are still too shallow. You've succeeded. You've proven your worth. Zhang Xiaofeng, the old fox, was very persistent. Principal, our school doesn't have a classroom that can accommodate 400 to 500 people? Fang Yen said. There were 11 classes in the first grade, and if each class had 40 students, there would be at least 400 to 500 students. Although the Vermilion Bird High School was very wealthy, they had never thought of preparing a few lecture halls for the use of large classes. I've already thought about this question. We have a school auditorium that can accommodate more than 200 people. Divide the 11 classes of students into 2 halves and lead half of the students to each class. Principal, is this really appropriate? Fang Yen asked uncertainly. Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Fang Yen with a determined gaze and said, Teacher Fang Yen, what are you worried about? If I'm not worried, what are you worried about? Whether it's appropriate or not, won't you know after you try? I believe you can succeed. Moreover, if you succeed, you'll become the #1 person in the entire flower world. If the results aren't obvious, we can just cancel the classes. There won't be too much of a loss. Am I right? When are the classes scheduled? Fang Yen asked. Oh, I've already prepared them for you. The 4 classes are scheduled on Monday and Friday during the night self-study period. After all, we can't delay the regular classes in the day. Principal. Fang Yan's eyes widened. Wasn't this asking him to work overtime? You just said that Chairman Lu hopes that I just do my job well. I can't arrange too many tasks. Yes, that's what I said. However, Director Lu also told me to actively cooperate with you in promoting the Fang family's teaching method. You see, Director Lu is really biased towards you. She didn't call this teaching method the Rosefinch teaching method, but she gave all the credit to you. Teacher Fang Yen, shouldn't you do more work to repay Chairman Lu's love for you? Zhang Xiaofeng took a sip of tea and said with a smile, Mr. Fang will give you a suitable tuition fee. Principal Zhang, I'm not a teacher for money. I simply like to be with students. The warm afternoon sun and the wind blew through the rows of thick white poplars. The branches and leaves swayed, and one or two leaves left their mother's body and danced in the air. They might be afraid, but they obtained freedom, the sky, and the ocean. The campus was filled with laughter. Students gathered in groups of 3 or 4 to chat. Some people were playing football on the field, and some people were singing in the woods. This kind of time was quiet and beautiful, and it made people in high spirits. This kind of life will soon not belong to us. Jiang Qin sighed. There was regret and reluctance on his face. But we will have a more exciting life. Wang Lin said. Everyone will leave. But we will leave early. Have you thought about it? We are number 26 middle school, and our studies are not the best in the school. To be frank, we don't like to study at all. Although I promised Mr. Fong that we will take the Rosefinch High School exam and enter his class. But, can we really do it? How many middle schools are there in this city? How many students are there in these dozens of middle schools? How many students are better than us in school? Even if we pass the Rosefinch exam, so what? We will compete with more and better students. We will study Chinese, mathematics, history, English, and we will study courses we don't like and may not need at all. After graduating from high school, we will enter the university. What will we do after graduation? Have you thought about it? What are you going to do after graduation? Jiang Qin looked at Wang Lin in surprise and said, Yuan Xiaolin, aren't you thinking too far away? It is very far away. There is 1 year left for the high school entrance exam, 3 years in high school, and 4 years in the university. There are at least 8 years to waste. If it was before, of course, we don't have to think about what will happen after 9 years. We can go to class, skip classes, go shopping, or sing songs as before. How good is it? But now, there is a great opportunity in front of us, and we have to think about it. I like singing and so do you. We will learn vocal music, to learn the zither, flute, yangqing. Do you remember? Last time when we walked to the entrance of the Fuhao building, you saw a Yangqin teacher recruiting students. You said you want to learn, but the fees are too high. If Xia Tian is willing to help, we will become the best talents in this field. Isn't that good? Why can't we seize this opportunity? Jiang Qin looked at Wang Lin and said, I have always felt strange. Your family is so good, why do you want to be a star? Even if I can't read Rosefinch, you can find a way to get in. Even if I can't find a job after graduation, you don't have to worry about such a problem. Why do you want to be a star? Because I want to be a different person, Wang Lin said with a smile. My father is a businessman, and my mother is also a businessman. So, I want to be a different person from them. He was different from many other people in this world. When Americans mention Hua Xia Kung Fu, they will think of Bruce Lee. When they mention the zither, they will think of Wang Lin. Isn't this something to be proud of and worth sacrificing for? Jiang Qin laughed and said, It seems that you have made up your mind. I just don't know if you can convince your parents. Definitely, Wang Lin said firmly. At this moment, someone shouted, Be careful. But a football flew over and hit Jiang Qin's chest. Jiang Qin cried out in pain and retreated. He was almost knocked to the ground by the football. A boy quickly ran over and looked at Jiang Qin in panic. He said, Classmate, are you okay? Classmate, did I hurt you? Jiang Qin covered his chest and couldn't speak. Wang Lin stood up for her friend and shouted, Hey, how do you play football? The goal is so big, and you deliberately kicked it. Are you crazy? I'm sorry. The boy apologized desperately. I didn't mean to. I really didn't mean to. I'll take her to the infirmary. Wang Lin looked at Jiang Qin and said, Do you want to go and have a look? Jiang Qin shook his head and said, No need. The boy was anxious and said, Classmate, you'd better go and have a look. What if she's hurt somewhere? I'll accompany you to have a look. No need. Jiang Qin glanced at the boy and said, Then I'll write down your phone number. Give me your number. I'll keep in touch with you at any time. If there's any problem, I'll come immediately. Is that okay? The boy looked at Jiang Qin with anticipation. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were extremely sensitive and looked up at the boy at the same time. The boy was very delicate with thin cheeks and long eyelashes. He was clean and gentle with the shyness that a student should have on his face. He wore a snow-white shirt, black pants, and a pair of white Converse canvas shoes on his feet. Seeing the two girls' scrutinizing eyes, the boy's face suddenly turned red. I just want, sorry. Jiang Qin interrupted him and said, there's really no need. The boy's face was gloomy. He nodded and said, I'm sorry, Before finishing his words, he turned and ran away quickly. Kai Lian from class 7, he likes you. Yuan Lin said. Jiang Qin looked up at the clouds in the sky and sighed softly in his heart. You're wearing the white shirt that I like, but I can only say sorry. Chapter 206. Ever since Jing Guodong left Rosefinch, Fang Yan's life had been much better. Lu Chaoga's acquisition of Rosefinch Secondary was no secret among the school's higher-ups and teachers. The scandal between Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga was even more widely spread by busybodies. I saw it with my own eyes. The two of them kissed in the field. Come. I'll give you an idiom. A young teacher flirting with a female leader. What's the mystery? That's right, reaching the sky in a single bound. This kind of gigolo is really useless. I won't sell my body and personality. Teacher Zhao, do you have a body and personality to sell? I think Mr. Fang is very good. He's young, handsome, and knows Tai Chi. Look at what Teacher Fang Yan has brought Class 9 to. His language scores have surpassed Class 1. Can an ordinary person do that? When Chen Dehai walked into the office, he heard his colleagues talking about Fang Yan's various scandals. He said this angrily. Team leader Chen. Teacher Zhao Mingliang of the first-year mathematics team looked at Chen Dehai with confusion. Didn't their team leader Chen hate Fang Yan? Even if he couldn't do anything to Fang Yan on the surface, it shouldn't be a problem to say a few bad things behind his back, right? Chen Dehai looked at Zhao Mingliang angrily and said, let's not talk about the fact that the scandal between Mr. Fang and Director Lu is groundless. Even if it's true, one of them is unmarried and the other is unmarried. Why can't they be in a relationship? They are teachers. It's not like they haven't reached the legal age yet. Team leader Chen is right. Zhao Mingliang apologized again and again. Chen Dehai looked around the office and said, when Teacher Fang Yan first came, I had some misunderstandings about him. That was because I saw that he was too young. I was worried that his ability wasn't enough and would delay the student's studies. Now Mr. Fang has proven his ability with his results. What else do we have to worry about? Therefore, I am very respectful towards teachers with genuine talent. I hope everyone can respect Teacher Fang Yan. Yes, Leader Chen. I also think that Teacher Fang Yan is not bad. That's a talent. Who would have thought that Class 9 would be able to surpass Class 1? I can't believe it. Chen Dehai was satisfied when he saw that everyone had changed their attitude. He said, go back to your own business. I still have things to do. Chen Dehai walked to Li Mingxiang's office door, knocked on the door, and asked, is Director Li here? Li Mingxiang opened the office door and smilingly said, Old Chen, you still want to play this trick with me? If there was anything, he could just push open the door and come in. Was there even a need to knock? Come, sit down and have some tea. Friendship is friendship. I can't let others think that I, Chen Dehai, have no respect, right? Chen Dehai said with a smile. I know Director Li has good tea here, so I came over for a cup of tea. After making a cup of tea for Chen Dehai, Li Mingxiang said with a smile, Old Chen, if there's anything, just say it. How many years have we known each other? Chen Dehai sighed and said, Old Li, to tell you the truth. Recently, I've been feeling uneasy in my heart. What made you feel uneasy? Li Mingxiang asked. You also know that when Director Zheng was here, we were close to him. We followed his lead in many things. It was precisely because of this that I and Teacher Fang Yan didn't get along very well. The two of us quarreled a lot. Now that Director Zheng is gone, Lu Chaoga bought the school. I also heard that Fang Yan and Director Lu have a close relationship. My heart began to feel uneasy. You say, I treated him like that, and tried to drive him away several times. How could Fang Yan not bear a grudge against me? I don't think Mr. Fang is the kind of person who holds a grudge. Li Mingqiang said with a smile. Don't judge Mr. Fang by his age, but his heart is not small. He's a young man that I've rarely seen in my life. He's a hero among men. Chen Dehai smiled bitterly in his heart. When he had a conflict with Fang Yan, you said that this kid was too young and impetuous to become a great person. Now, he's a hero among men with a big heart? Director Li, I want to ask you for a favor. Chen Dehai said the purpose of this trip. Old Chen, what can I help with? Don't hesitate to ask. Li Ziqiang said straightforwardly. I want to invite Mr. Fang for a meal. Can Director Li help mediate in the middle? Chen Dehai said with a smile. If I invite him, he definitely won't give me face. But if Director Li invites him, the effect will be different. Li Mingqiang thought about it and said, okay, I'll call Mr. Fang. I can't guarantee whether it will work or not. Thank you, Director Li, Chen Dehai said gratefully. It's good to be an old friend. He can help you at the critical moment. Why do you say this? Li Mingqiang pointed to the door and said, Deputy Director Zhu Jian seems to be in the office. Do you have nothing to do and talk to him? Chen Dehai understood and said, okay, then I'll go talk to Director Zhu. I won't bother Director Li. Li Mingqiang waved and said, I'll call you when I get the confirmation. After sending Chen Dehai away, Li Mingqiang secretly thought that there must be many teachers like Chen Dehai. Although Fang Yan was just a language teacher, in the entire Rosefinch Secondary, when it came to power and influence, he was probably ranked first or second. Who asked him to be the spokesperson of Director Lu? Fortunately, I turned the rudder fast. Li Mingqiang thought with great satisfaction. Li Mingqiang called to invite him for a meal. Fang Yan hesitated a little and then agreed. Li Mingqiang was the first batch of the school's top management to lean towards Lu Chaoga. Now that Lu Chaoga had left, Fang Yan became Lu Chaoga's spokesperson in the school. There were many things that needed Li Mingqiang and the others to do. Besides, Li Mingqiang had been trying hard to get close to him. If he didn't respond at all, it would make Li Mingqiang's heart turn cold, and others who wanted to get close to him would stop. During the call, Li Mingqiang vaguely mentioned that he would bring Chen Dehai to the dinner. Fang Yan immediately understood the meaning of this treat. This was not Li Mingqiang's treat, but Chen Dehai wanted to apologize to him. There was no class in the afternoon, so Fang Yan, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohan told them to go to the school cafeteria to eat by themselves. After that, he changed his clothes and walked towards the school gate. Baldy was on duty. When he saw Fang Yan greeting him warmly, he shouted, Mr. Fang, are you going out? Fang Yan waved his hand. I haven't seen any girls coming to school to see you in the past 2 days. Baldy said fawningly. If there were, I would let them in. As soon as he stepped out of the school gate, he saw Zhang Chen walking towards the school. When Zhang Chen saw Fang Yan, he quickly greeted him and asked with a smile, Master, are you going out? There's a dinner party. Fang Yan said, Zhang Chen, how many times have I said that we are of the same generation? Where are you going? I just finished class, and I want to cook for Master. Zhang Chen smiled honestly and said, if Master is not at home, then I will go to make a bowl of noodles with gravy for heroes and warriors. They like to eat this. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, then go. Fang Yan stood on the side of the road and was about to stop a taxi to leave. A black Mercedes-Benz rushed towards where he was standing. Fang Yan quickly jumped away, and the Mercedes-Benz rushed towards Zhang Chen behind him. Zhang Chen also quickly dodged to the side, and the Mercedes-Benz suddenly braked and stopped. Clang! The door opened, and a young man with a crew cut pushed the door open and got out of the car. There was a cigarette in his hand. After taking a puff, he looked at Zhang Chen with a smile and scolded, Zhang Chen, you are not dead yet? Chengping, what are you doing? Zhang Chen stared at the crew cut with a malicious face and asked, what am I doing? The crew cut stared at Zhang Chen viciously and scolded, I came to ask you what you want. Why did you contact my wife for no reason? What? Do you want to rekindle your old love? Or do you think that since you have nothing to do, you might as well come out and have sex? Chengping, don't slander me. Zhang Chen shouted angrily. I slander you? The crew cut was also angry. He took out a stack of paper from his pocket and threw it over. He said angrily, I even found out your call records. Do you dare to say that the number ending with 7,878 is not yours, you bastard? We are not what you think. Zhang Chen's momentum was reduced. Not what I think. The crew cut sneered. He turned around and ran to the side of the car, opened the back door, and dragged out a woman from inside. He said, so what if it is not what I think? This bitch has admitted that she is in contact with you. Do you still want to deny it? Zhang Chen, you dare to make me a cuckold. Do you believe that I will kill you? The woman was tall and sweet, but her eyes were purple and red, and there were many bruises on her face. Obviously, after her and Zhang Chen's call records were found, the husband and wife should have had some fierce physical conflict. Chengping, I told you that this matter has nothing to do with Zhang Chen. We were just chatting, nothing happened. The woman explained with red eyes. Slap. Chongping slapped the woman's face and scolded angrily, you stinking bitch, even now you are still speaking for him. Do you dare to say that there is no adultery between you two? Do you believe that I will beat you to death here? Zhang Chen rushed toward Chongping and shouted, Chengding, if you have anything to say, come at me. What's the big deal about bullying a woman? Chongping looked Zhang Chen up and down and said with a smile, come at you? Oh, I almost forgot. You are Hua City's MMA champion, my master back then. How can I attack my master? Fang Yan looked at Chongping and said, we are not relatives or friends, this is purely the first time we have met. You came to attack me. Chongping glanced at Fang Yan and scolded, where did you come from, idiot? Do you have the right to speak here? You want to stand up for your master? You don't have such a deep cultivation. Get lost. Go back to where you came from. Fang Yan's body moved, and he appeared in front of Chongping. He grabbed him by the neck and slammed him against the hood of the Mercedes-Benz. Clang, there was a muffled sound, and a huge hole was smashed into the hood of the Mercedes-Benz. Chapter 207. Caught off guard, Chongping was grabbed by Fang Yan, and his head was slammed against the Mercedes-Benz, making him dizzy. He mistakenly thought that Fang Yan was Zhang Chen's disciple, and that he had attacked him to please Zhang Chen. His heart burned with anger, and he roared angrily, you bastard, how dare you hit me? He had also learned mixed martial arts for a few years, and he felt that his skills were good. He twisted his body, trying to turn around and fight back. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, his neck was still in Fang Yan's hands. Fang Yan's grip was not tight, but it was like a magnet, firmly sucking his neck, making it impossible for him to break free. Fang Yan did not let go of his neck, and after hearing his curses, he pressed his head down again and slammed it against the hood of the Mercedes-Benz. Clang, I've already remembered you, I'll remember your face. Do you know who I am? I'll kill you. I'll kill your whole family. Clang, you bastard, let me go if you dare, I'll fight you one-on-one, I want to fight you one-on-one. Clang, clang, clang. After 6 or 7 consecutive hits, Fang Yan finally let go. Chongping's body collapsed softly on the car, his forehead dripping with blood, looking like a bloody mess. The hard hood of the Mercedes-Benz was dented, showing how fierce and heavy the impact just now was. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked speechless. This handsome and gentle man, how could he be so crazy and violent? Fang Yan stared coldly at Chongping and said, I don't know who you are, and I don't care who you are. What I want to tell you is that this is the school gate, and it's school time. You're a hooligan, driving a broken Mercedes-Benz and driving around. If you hit any student, 100 people like you who can't even take care of themselves will not be enough to pay for it. Fang Yan was really angry. He didn't care what grudge this crew cut had with Zhang Chen, nor did he care if Zhang Chen had made Chongping a cuckold. If you want to reason with him, then do it properly. If you really want to, then arrange a place to beat up Zhang Chen. But why did you hit me with your car? I didn't offend anyone. I was just waiting for a taxi by the roadside. Why did you hit me with your car? Although it had been a while since school ended, and it was not the peak time for students to leave school, there were still students coming out of the school in 2s and 3s and standing by the roadside waiting for the bus. Not far from Zhangchen, there were two female students standing there holding hands and laughing. They were also pointing at Fang Yan. They might be teacher Fang Yan's female fans. What if Changping didn't brake in time or lost control of the car and hit the students? Slow down for the school section. This was common sense that all drivers understood. Even if he didn't understand, there were obvious signs hanging on the roadside. But just how fast had Changping been rushing over just now? Because of your mistakes, other families have to suffer because of it. Men like to show off, but if the occasion was not right, they would become fools. Men like to show off, but if the target was not right, it would become cruel. Changping was undoubtedly a fool who failed to show off, so he had to accept a cruel blow. You ask me if I know who you are? Why should I know where you came from, you little tramp? Do you think you are Lu Dehua and everyone in the world knows you? Do you know who I am? I am a teacher, one of the best language teachers in Rosefinch Secondary. If you had killed me just now, do you know what kind of loss it would have brought to Rosefinch? What kind of loss would it have brought to the whole of Wuxia? Changping struggled to open his eyes and asked, "What kind of loss?" Fang Yan kicked his knee and scolded, "What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? I hate idiots who think they are the best in the world just because they have a little money." Fang Yan said with a face full of contempt, "I have billions in my bank account. Do you think I will tell everyone I meet?" After saying this, Fang Yan suddenly felt a burst of comfort in his heart. It turned out that having a lot of money in the card but not being able to tell others was really hard to bear. Wasn't it the cruelest thing in the world to wear luxurious clothes and walk at night? For you, I am Fang Yan. The square in square, the yen in the descendants of Yen and Huang. The descendants of Yen and Huang should be upright. Don't think about retaliating against me. If I can't fight you alone, I will beat you up. Fang Yan stared at Changping vigilantly and said threateningly, "If you dare to find a group to beat me up even once, I will fight you alone once a day." Fang Yan glanced at Zhangchen and said, "I'm sorry to have delayed your time. I'm done with my business. It's your turn." After that, he turned around and walked toward the bus stop not far away. It was the time for taxis to change shifts, so it was not easy to stop a taxi. Changping spat out a mouthful of saliva as he watched Fang Yan leave. "You still have the face to say that you have billions in your bank account, master?" Zhangchen chased after him and wanted to explain. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "Take care of your own business." Several girls chased after him and shouted sweetly, Mr. Fang, can you give me an autograph? I am just an ordinary language teacher. Don't treat me like a star. Where do you want to sign?" When Fang Yan pushed the door open and walked into the box, Li Mingqiang, Zhu Jian, and Chen Dehai had been waiting for a long time. Among the people present, Fang Yan's rank was the lowest. However, Lu Chaoga bluntly said that Fang Yan was her spokesperson in the school when she left. Even Principal Zhang Xiaofeng had to give him face. Therefore, Fang Yan became the most powerful person in the school. There was also a person who should not have appeared here, which made Fang Yan's heart have an irrepressible anger. When Chen Tao saw Fang Yan come in, he hurriedly greeted him and respectfully shouted, "Mr. Fang, you are here." Fang Yan patted Chen Tao's shoulder and took him into the room. After Li Mingqiang and Fang Yan shook hands, he said with a smile, "Mr. Fang is here. Can we start the banquet?" "Start the banquet. Start the banquet," Chen Dehai said with a smile. "The important guests are all here. Naturally, we should start the banquet. Aren't we here to eat?" Chen Dehai's level of speech was very high. The sentence, "the important guests are all here," highlighted the prominent position of Fang Yan. He said that he was an important guest, but he would not ignore the feelings of Li Mingqiang and Zhu Jian. He was quite a smooth person. Li Mingqiang, Zhu Jian, and Chen Dehai pushed Fang Yan to sit at the head of the table. Fang Yan did not respond. He said that Li Mingqiang was the leader, and according to age, he was the big brother of everyone present, so he pushed him up. The wine was good, and the dishes were also good. Chen Dehai shouted at his son and shouted, "Chen Tao, you don't need to sit at the table. Stand behind Mr. Fang and pour wine for Mr. Fang. You are Mr. Fang's student. This matter has to be done by you." Chen Tao quickly stood up and ran behind Fang Yen. Fang Yen waved his hand and said, "Sit down and eat. There are too many etiquettes and eating is tiring." "Mr. Fang, this is the old rule. What is the saying again? A teacher for a day is a father for life." "Teacher is a father. Chen Tao is your student and also your son. Isn't it natural for a son to pour a glass of wine for his father?" Chen Dahai insisted. Fang Yen did not insist. Li Mingqiang took the lead to raise his glass and said, "Come, it's rare for us to get together. Let's have a drink today." Fang Yen raised his glass and clinked glasses with them, and then lowered his head to eat. Li Mingqiang winked at Chen Dahai. Chen Dahai nodded and quickly walked to Fang Yen with his glass, and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, when you first came to Rosefinch, I didn't know you very well, so there were a lot of misunderstandings and conflicts between us. Of course, this is mainly my fault. Blame me, blame me. This glass of wine is for you. I hope you can be magnanimous and forget all the things in the past. Is that okay?" After Chen Dahai finished, he raised his neck and drank all the white wine in the glass. Fang Yen lowered his head to eat, as if he didn't hear Chen Dahai's words and didn't see Chen Dahai's toast. Chen Dahai's face suddenly turned purple. Fang Yen didn't give him face. He knew that today he must untie the knot in Fang Yan's heart. The longer it dragged, the worse it would be. So, he poured himself another glass of white wine and said aloud again, "Mr. Fang, I know you have grievances and resentment in your heart. This is a matter of course. From now on, you can watch my performance." After that, Chen Dahai raised his head again and drank the glass of white wine in his neck. Fang Yan's chopsticks in his hand stopped. He looked up at Chen Dahai and didn't say anything. Chen Dahai let Chen Tao fill the glass in his hand and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, I toast you again." Chen Tao was anxious. He ran in front of Fang Yen and cried, "Mr. Fang, my dad knows he's wrong. He knows he's wrong, please forgive him this time. Mr. Fang, I beg you. My dad can't hold his liquor well, he really can't drink anymore." Plop. Chen Tao knelt in front of Fang Yen and pleaded with tears on his face. Li Mingqiang also persuaded and said, "Yes, old Chen was confused for a moment. So he did something wrong. Mr. Fang, can you forgive him this time? Didn't old Chen say it? Let's see his performance in the future, okay?" Zhu Jian opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything. He and Fang Yen hadn't been in contact for a long time, but he knew that this person was terribly stubborn. Once he decided on something, even 9 bulls couldn't pull him back. Fang Yen expressionlessly glanced at the crowd, and finally his eyes stopped on Chen Dahai's face. He said firmly, "I won't forgive." Chapter 208. Everyone looked at Fang Yen in astonishment. They didn't understand why he hated Chen Dahai so much. He didn't want to give up so easily. "I know it must be difficult for you to understand my thoughts," Fang Yen said, looking at Li Mingqiang and Zhu Jian. Director Chen was the mediator, and Zhu Jian was the support. Chen Dahai's attitude was sincere, and he drank a few glasses of white wine to apologize. Moreover, he didn't give face to his father in front of a student. It must have left a deep shadow in his heart. He must have a deep grudge against me. According to normal people's thinking, I should look at the big picture and make the big things small. I should let go of the past and pretend that nothing happened. Then we can eat and drink together. It's a perfect meeting. Even if it's just a superficial disguise, I should still do it. "But I can't forgive you," Fang Yen said. "To be honest, when I first came to Rosefinch, not only did I have conflicts with Teacher Chen, but I also had conflicts with Director Li." Li Mingqiang looked embarrassed and said, "Yes, at that time, we didn't know each other very well, so." Li Mingqiang secretly regretted it. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have agreed to let Chen Dahai get involved in this matter. Although he was now on Lu Chaoga's side, he had, after all, offended Fang Yen. The other party wasn't a guy who liked to play by the rules. Breaking the thin layer of protection in front of everyone was undoubtedly a hard slap in his face. Fang Yen waved his hand, indicating that Li Mingqiang didn't need to explain. He said, "Director Li and I should belong to the faction struggle. Director Li is Director Zhang's man, and I am Director Lu's man. Director Zheng's son has a problem with me, and Director Zheng also has a problem with me. I can completely understand you trying to kick me out of the school. Teacher Chen also tried to kick me out of the school. I can also accept this. You don't like someone, and you want to see what the eye doesn't see. I don't find it strange at all, because I didn't like you at that time, and I also hoped that you would suddenly make a mistake and get fired. Director Li wants to kick me out, and so does Professor Chen. However, I have forgiven Director Li Mingqiang. Why am I not willing to forgive Teacher Chen? Fang Yan looked at Chen Dehai and said, because I think your methods are too dirty. Teacher Chen, do you still remember what happened at the Sparrow Bridge that night? Chen Tao, Li Yang, and Zheng Guodong made a female student pretend that she was being bullied, and then lured me into taking the bait. To be honest, this matter is too dark. Even now, when I think about it, I still feel a chill in my heart and soul, and it's hard to quell my anger. Chen Dehai's lips trembled, but no words came out. Fang Yan was too smart. Extra explanations would only make people feel more disgusted. What kind of hatred do we have between us? Why would you set me up like this? If I wasn't me, if it were any other teacher, if I were Zhu Jian. Hearing Fang Yan mention the past, Zhu Jian's expression was also extremely ugly. How could he not be angry? How could he not hate them? No one knew better than him what kind of consequences it was, and no one understood better than him what kind of feeling it was. Anger, hatred, destruction, despair, and having nothing left. If Fang Yan wasn't Fang Yan, if Fang Yan had been successfully set up like him, then, at this moment, would Fang Yan still be sitting here eating and chatting with them? Because he had experienced that kind of thing, because he had suffered the consequences of that matter, because those few years were worse than death, because his family was broken up, Zhu Jian's heart was filled with hatred. He hated Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao. He hated Chen Dehai, Li Mingqiang, and Jing Tiancheng. He hated all the B***stards who participated in this matter and ruined his reputation. However, he knew that his ability was limited, and his strength was weak. Even if he had hatred, he could only suppress it in the bottom of his heart. Because he still had to work, because he still had to eat. He drank and chatted with them, and he called them brothers. He told himself that a man should be flexible, and everything was for the sake of survival. However, Fang Yan chose a more extreme and direct way to deal with it. He didn't feel wronged, he didn't pretend to be polite, and he would never forgive. Mr. Fang, this matter was done by us, and it has nothing to do with my father. Chen Tao explained aloud. Chen Tao, you don't have to explain. Fang Yan interrupted Chen Tao's words and said, there are some things that everyone knows. It doesn't make sense for you to want to put all the blame on yourself. Teacher is not as stupid as you think. Have you thought about it? If you had succeeded in that incident, what would have happened to me? My reputation would be ruined, and I would have nothing left. No matter where I went, I would be ridiculed and pointed at my back. This approach was tantamount to completely destroying a person's life. There would be no more hope. Zheng Guodong got the punishment he deserved. Chen Tao and Li Yang performed well later, and the most important thing is that you are just an immature child. I am very angry that you did this kind of thing, but I am willing to give you a chance to turn over a new leaf. Teacher Chen, you have decades of work experience, and you are mature and quick-witted. You plan this kind of thing behind the scenes. Have you thought about the nature of this? Chen Dehai's face was ashen, and the hand holding the wine glass was trembling. The wine kept spilling out, and his mood at this time was extremely unstable. Fang Yan's voice was like a pair of scissors, a sharp sword, cutting open wounds on his skin and flesh, and then he used a sharp arrow to cut open his flesh from those wounds, peeling off the whole skin from the body. He was like a skinned clown, standing naked and dripping with blood in front of Fang Yan, standing in front of everyone. Teacher Chen, at that time, you were more powerful. You had connections and backing, so when you made your move, you were unscrupulous and did everything you could. Yes, now that I have some advantage, you are worried that I will retaliate, so you invited me to dinner, and you apologized to me. If you once again have the upper hand, or if I accept your apology, I will become another Jing Tiancheng standing behind you. If there are other teachers who have offended you, what kind of method will you use to deal with them? That kind of evil thing, or something even dirtier than that, will happen again? Teacher Qin, tell me, should I forgive you? Fang Yan dragged Qin Tao up from the ground and said, in the future, don't involve children in adult matters. The muscles on Li Mingxiang's face twitched again. At that time when Qin Dahai wanted to bring Qin Tao out, he felt that it was somewhat inappropriate. What's the use of letting children get involved in adult matters? But Qin Dahai said that Qin Tao was Fang Yan's student, and letting him follow to serve tea and toast was what he should do. Li Mingxiang thought that if Fang Yan valued friendship, seeing that Qin Tao was his student, he would have a better impression of Qin Dahai. Unexpectedly, it backfired. Not only did Fang Yan not see the face of Qin Tao being Qin Dahai's son, but he was even more displeased with Qin Dahai for playing his own son card. Qin Dahai, why are you so unlucky? Fang Yan walked in front, and Qin Tao followed behind Fang Yan with his head down. The teacher and the teachers slowly walked in the direction of the school. Do you hate me? Fang Yan asked. Qin Tao said, do you hate your father? Don't hate him either. Fang Yan said, because he is your father. Mr. Fang, I don't know if I should hate him or not. I understand the reason you said, and I can understand the words you said. I know what you said is right. I am angry at my father and angry at myself. But I don't know what to do. When he begged you for your forgiveness, I felt that my father was very pitiful. This world is like this. We pay attention to the law of the jungle, and we also pay attention to karma. The strong eat the weak, and what you sow will reap what you sow. The reason why your father is pitiful is that he was too unscrupulous before. Everyone should be punished for doing something wrong. If I forgive him this time, then he feels that the cost of the crime is nothing. At most, he will apologize again and be forgiven again. What kind of path will he eventually take? What about those who were framed by him? I can't forgive him, and I don't dare to forgive him. Because I am worried that I will be hurt by such a person again, and I am also worried that another me will be framed by such a person. Fang Yan stopped and turned to look at Qin Tao, saying, you are my student. So there is a sentence I want to give you. I don't ask you to be a righteous and brave person, but at least, please be a sunny and kind person. I don't believe in God, but I believe that if you do too many bad things, you will meet someone who can fix you. Qin Tao nodded seriously and said, Mr. Fang, I understand. I know I was wrong. I will not let you down in the future. Fang Yan patted Qin Tao's shoulder and said, also, don't easily kneel in the future. Kneel to the sky, kneel to the earth, kneel to your parents, kneel to your teacher. Teacher, this is not shameful, Qin Tao said. Fang Yan's expression was stunned and he said, this flattery really hit my heart. Good job, keep it up. The master and disciple looked at each other and laughed. When Fang Yan opened the door and entered the house, he found that there were guests in the house. Zhang Chen and the woman were sitting on the sofa in the living room, waiting. Seeing Fang Yan come back, the two quickly stood up to greet him, their faces full of uneasiness. Chapter 209. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, those who come are guests, sit down and talk. Zhang Chen didn't sit. He stood in front of Fang Yan with a face full of guilt and said, Master, I didn't think something like this would happen, and I even dragged you into it. I promise you, nothing happened between me and Sun Li. We are innocent. I swear to you on my honor and reputation. Fang Yan looked at the two of them and said, then tell me, what's going on? Fang Yan was willing to give him a chance to explain. This made Zhang Chen very happy. He was determined to become Fang Yan's disciple. If the incident with Changping caused Fang Yan to misunderstand his character, then his path to becoming Fang Yan's disciple would be completely blocked. However, when it came to explaining the past, Zhang Chen's expression was full of sorrow and he couldn't speak for a long time. How could he pick up the grains that had rotted in the mud one by one? Sun Li sighed and said, let me explain. Zhang Chen loved martial arts since he was a child, and he learned kung fu from Sun Rulong, a martial arts master in Huaqing. Sun Rulong was very fond of Zhang Chen's talent and thought highly of him. He taught him everything he knew. Zhang Chen gradually became famous in Huaqing's mixed martial arts world, and he quickly became the symbol of the Rulong martial arts school with Sun Rulong as its master. Sun Rulong had a son and a daughter. His son, Sun Chong, avoided martial arts like a scorpion, while his daughter, Sun Li, loved martial arts as much as her life. Sun Li's kung fu wasn't good, but she had a good impression of Zhang Chen, who was highly skilled in martial arts. The two of them gradually became an enviable couple. Later, Sun Rulong became old and weak and couldn't teach any disciples, so he handed the Rulong martial arts school to his most valued disciple, Zhang Chen. When Zhang Chen opened his dojo to accept disciples, Changping was one of the first disciples to become a disciple of Zhang Chen. When Changping first arrived, he was very low-key. He was diligent, eager to learn, and devoted to martial arts. He was extremely respectful to his master, Zhang Chen, and was generous to his fellow disciples and his master's wife, Sun Li. He won everyone's favor, including Zhang Chen and Sun Li, who liked Changping very much at that time. Even the teacher Gong Sun Rulong, who no longer cared about the affairs of the martial arts club, was sent to the United States, France, England, Germany, and other countries at Changping's expense. The itinerary was meticulous and thoughtful, and Gong Sun Rulong was full of praise for this disciple of his. What he didn't expect was that Changping had long coveted Sun Li's beauty and graceful figure. When Zhang Chen represented the Rulong Martial Arts School in Thailand to participate in a national mixed martial arts competition, Changping invited Sun Li to the martial arts school under the guise of asking his master's wife for some pointers. Sun Li was so angry that she told her father, Sun Rulong. Sun Rulong was worried that the family's dirty linen would be exposed. Changping knelt in front of him and sincerely apologized, saying that he did it because he liked Sun Li from the bottom of his heart. He was willing to marry Sun Li and love her for the rest of his life. He wouldn't let her suffer even the slightest bit. Besides, Sun Li and Changping were already husband and wife. If Zhang Chen found out about this, it would be difficult for the two of them to be together again. It was better for Sun Li and Changping to be a happy couple. Sun Li's brother, Sun Chong, was even more direct. After accepting a luxurious villa from Changping, he told Sun Li that he would recognize Changping as his brother-in-law. Moreover, since Sun Li and Changping had already slept together, Sun Chong was already his brother-in-law. When Zhang Chen returned home after his victory, he found that everything around him had changed. His beloved girlfriend was engaged to his most valued disciple, and he, the person involved, was not informed by anyone. He was so angry that he wanted to destroy the world. One night, when Changping was sending Sun Li home, Zhang Chen blocked his way and beat him up, almost beating him to death in the dojo. Sun Li was worried that Zhang Chen would kill someone and cause trouble, so she knocked him out with a spear from behind. From then on, Zhang Chen was depressed and distanced himself from the glory of Hua City's mixed martial arts world, becoming an unknown martial arts teacher. Changping's beating by Zhang Chen was not without repercussions. Because Sun Li was molested by Changping, Zhang Chen ruthlessly kicked Changping's penis a few times. From then on, Changping developed a phobia of erectile dysfunction in front of women. Until now, they had not given birth to any children. Changping did not reflect on himself and pushed all the blame onto Sun Li. He beat and scolded her, and Sun Li's life was miserable. After Zhang Chen heard about Sun Li's life, he went to talk to Changping again. Changping suspected that Sun Li and Zhang Chen had rekindled their relationship and that Zhang Chen wanted to negotiate with him to show off. His attitude towards Sun Li was even worse. This time, Changping came to settle the score with Zhang Chen because he had monitored Sun Li's phone calls and found that Sun Li and Zhang Chen had a long call history. Why not divorce? Fang Yan looked at Sun Li and asked. Sun Li was a pitiful woman, and Zhang Chen was a pitiful man. The entanglement of these two people's fate was really regrettable. I can't, Sun Li said. The Chang family is rich and powerful. I've asked for a divorce several times, but they rejected me every time. Zhang Chen looked at Fang Yan and said, I've tried. But nothing worked. They also said that if I dared to ask for a divorce again, they would send me to a mental hospital for 3 years. When I came out, I would become a real mental patient. At that time, it would be even more impossible for me to divorce, Sun Li said with a pained expression. They've gone too far, Fang Yan said angrily. That's right. How hateful. Junior martial uncle, let's go beat him up. Fang Ying was also filled with righteous indignation after listening to the story. Was there any justice left in this world? Why me? Fang Haohen asked with a puzzled expression. Because I still have to listen to the story, Fang Ying said. Sun Li looked at Fang Yan and said with tears in her eyes, Mr. Fang, everything is my fault. If I didn't marry Changping, if it wasn't for me, if it wasn't for Changping, then this afternoon wouldn't have happened. Zhang Chen is a good man. Not being able to marry him is the biggest regret of my life. I've been like this for the rest of my life, but Zhang Chen is different. He no longer has anything to do with me. We haven't been in contact for many years. He found out from a former student that my life isn't going well, so he wanted to help me. He likes to learn martial arts, and he really wants you to be his disciple. If possible, I hope this incident won't affect your opinion of him. I believe he's a very good disciple. He's very talented, and he definitely won't let you down. Sun Li looked at Zhang Chen and said with determination, From now on, you don't have to care about my affairs anymore. Don't think about it, don't listen, pretend you don't know. We've stopped interacting for a long time, and we won't contact each other again. I know what your dream is, so try your best to achieve it. I wish you success. As she spoke, large teardrops rolled down her cheeks. Then she bowed deeply to Fang Yan, turned around, and ran out the door. Zhang Chen glanced at Fang Yan, then quickly chased after her. Fang Ying and Fang Haohen looked at each other, then Fang Ying said, Zhang Chen is so pitiful. Yeah, Fang Haohen echoed. So pitiful. Fang Yan was silent, as if he didn't understand the meaning behind the two brothers' words. Half an hour later, Zhang Chen returned. Sun Li was nowhere to be seen. Fang Yan stood up and said, Come take a walk with me in the yard. Zhang Chen nodded and followed Fang Yan out. Do you still like her? Fang Yan asked. Zhang Chen was stunned. He didn't expect Fang Yan to ask him such a question. He nodded, and then shook his head. You don't know either? Fang Yan asked. I don't know, Zhang Chen said. In the beginning I hated her. I thought it was because of her that my life was ruined. Then I tried to forget her. I didn't want to be in such pain anymore. I knew her life wasn't going well, and I was worried about her. I just don't know if I still like her. You still like her, Fang Yan said with absolute certainty. Zhang Chen raised his head and looked at Fang Yan in confusion. He had asked himself this question countless times, but he couldn't get a definite answer. Why did Fang Yan come to this conclusion so easily? Your fists are too heavy, Fang Yan said. Not only is your fist heavy, your body is heavy, your thoughts are heavy, and your entire being is heavy. You're so heavy that you can't breathe, you're so heavy that you can't run, and you're so heavy that you can't use your fists. You have too much baggage and you can't let go of her. Master, do you know what Tai Chi is? Fang Yan asked. Zhang Chen shook his head. An old man was practicing Tai Chi in the park with great strength. At this time, a young man came and said, Grandpa, you're so good at martial arts, how did you practice? The old man said, I'll stand still and try hitting me with all your strength. So the young man punched the old man hard. And then? Zhang Chen asked excitedly. It was an inspirational story of an ignorant teenager who met a hidden master in the park, and then became a master of Tai Chi. He liked to listen to such a story of a loser's counterattack. This was also the ideal life he had always been looking forward to. The young man was blackmailed of 20,000 yuan, Fang Yan said. Now do you know what Tai Chi is? Fang Yan asked. Zhang Chen shook his head again and said, I still don't know. This story tells us that if you want to learn Tai Chi, you must choose the right master. Only when the master is strong can the disciple learn real skills. The master only has posture but no momentum. Not only can the disciple not learn anything, but he may also be blackmailed of 20,000 yuan. Master, what do you mean? Zhang Chen thought hard, but he still didn't understand what Fang Yan was trying to say. Fang Yan looked at Zhang Chen helplessly and said, Now, you can worship as a master. Chapter 210. The familiar street, the familiar shop, the familiar bun shop, the black-faced girl, the familiar milk tea girl. After so many days, he returned to the small courtyard of Jiang Qin's house. His heart was filled with emotions. When Fang Yan stood at the entrance of the courtyard and looked around, Sister Li had already come out of the house to welcome him. She said with a smile, "Mr. Fang is here. Come in and have a seat." "Sister Li, are you busy?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "I'm just a housewife. What can I be busy with?" Sister Li stepped forward and pulled Fang Yan's hand. She said, "I know that Mr. Fang is busy, so I still invited Mr. Fang to come over." "Mr. Fang, you can't be angry with Sister Li." The housewife wasn't too scheming, but she was very familiar with welcoming guests. Sister Li's attitude towards Fang Yan was warm and polite. It was as if they got along well in the past and nothing had happened. "That's exactly what I wanted. I haven't eaten the dishes cooked by Sister Li for a long time." Fang Yan said with a smile. "If you come every day, I will cook for you every day," Sister Li said straightforwardly. Fang Yan smiled and didn't answer. He knew that if he really came every day, perhaps Sister Li would raise the mop to chase him away again. After Sister Li poured a cup of hot tea for Fang Yan, she sat down on the sofa opposite Fang Yan. "Fang Yan, Sister Li asked you to come over. There's something I want to discuss with you." Sister Li looked at Fang Yan sincerely and said softly, "Sister Li, if there's anything, just say it." Fang Yan said, "If I can do it, I will help you. If I can't do it, I will also tell you the reasons why I can't do it. It's like this. When Jiang Qin came back these days, he kept telling me that he wanted to drop out of school and learn the Guzheng Yangqin. He also said that he wanted to enter the entertainment circle and become a big star in the future." Sister Li looked worried and embarrassed. She said, "How can that be? Jiang Qin had one more year before the senior high school entrance examination, so he couldn't relax at this time. Otherwise, not to mention a famous high school like Rosefinch, I'm afraid I won't be able to get into any other high school." Holding the teacup, Fang Yan looked at Sister Li and asked patiently, "Sister Li, have you talked to Jiang Qin?" "We talked about it." "Why hadn't they talked about it before?" "His father and I went to talk to him twice, but this child was stubborn since he was young. Once he decided on something, it was hard to change his mind. Although we don't let go, we're afraid that she'll do something extreme. She said that there's a big star called Xia Tian. Was it that Xia Tian who agreed to accept her as his disciple?" Fang Yan nodded. "I know about this. I know about this Xia Tian. She's very famous. I've also watched her TV series. However, how could Jiang Qin know Xia Tian?" "The Xia Tian. Was it the Xia Tian who made the movie?" "The Xia Tian that Jiang Qin knew was the Xia Tian who made the movie," Fang Yan explained. "Xia Tian is my friend. When Jiang Qin and her classmates called to invite me to sing, I took Xia Tian with me, and then we got to know each other. Xia Tian felt that Jiang Qin had a lot of potential, so she wanted to let Jiang Qin and Wang Lin follow her to make music." In order to prevent Sister Li from misunderstanding his relationship with Jiang Qin, Fang Yan tried his best to explain the whole story clearly. Of course, it doesn't mean that after dropping out of school, the two of them can immediately become stars. I talked to Xia Tian. She just sent Jiang Qin and Wang Lin to Yanjing first, and then Mao Xianping, a senior professor of Huaxia Music Academy, gave them music lessons. In other words, they're just music apprentices now. Sister Li's expression became more worried and said, "Just apprentices? If you learn well, you can still be a star," Fang Yan said. He smiled bitterly in his heart. When Sister Li heard that her daughter was going to be a star, she was worried that her daughter would be cheated. However, when she heard that her daughter was just going to be a music apprentice, she felt sorry for her daughter. She hoped that her daughter would have a million good things, but she also hoped that her daughter would not encounter any danger or trouble. "Is she reliable, that Xia Tian? Her character should be reliable," Fang Yan said. With her status in the entertainment circle, if she wanted to accept disciples, there would be at least 80,000 people willing to be her disciple. Since she chose Jiang Qin and Wang Lin, it proves that Jiang Qin and Wang Lin really have something that she values. Mr. Fang means, we should let Jiang Qin learn music with Xia Tian? Sister Li asked uncertainly. Fang Yan smiled and shook his head, saying, I don't mean anything. It's all up to you and Jiang Qin. Sister Li patted Fang Yan's knee and said with a smile, Aren't you treating me like an outsider? Jiang Qin is your little niece. Now that she is facing an important decision in her life, as her uncle, aren't you going to help her? Mr. Fang, I'll listen to you on this matter. If you say it's okay, we'll do it. If you say no, then Jiang Qin doesn't need to think about anything else. Just focus on her studies and prepare for the exam. I can't decide her life. Fang Yan said with a smile. It seemed that because of the contact between Jiang Qin and Xia Tian, Sister Li was still vigilant against him. She wouldn't suspect that Jiang Qin was going to be a music producer because of his encouragement, would she? In all honesty, he had never expressed his position on this matter. When Jiang Dehai came back from the shop, he was very happy to see Fang Yan. He took out a bottle of good wine from his private collection and wanted to have a good drink with Fang Yan. Fang Yan also had a good impression of this silent butcher who always had a smile on his face. He looked like a Maitreya Buddha. The two of them drank half a kilo each, and the bottle of wine was soon finished. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Fang Yan got up and said goodbye. Jiang Qin ran downstairs and said, Mr. Fang, I'll see you off. No need. Fang Yan refused. It's not like I don't know the way. Let Jiang Qin see you off. Sister Li said. Fang Yan no longer refused and walked out the door with Jiang Qin. Winter had arrived and the weather was getting colder. Jiang Qin put on a casual coat and a plaid scarf around her neck. She walked in front with her hands in her pockets, and Fang Yan walked behind her unhurriedly. The two of them walked along the small river in the village toward the bus stop at the intersection. My mother agreed for me to study music. Jiang Qin suddenly turned around and said to Fang Yan with a sweet smile. Congratulations. Fang Yan said. Jiang Qin shook her head and said, When my mother didn't agree, I was very anxious. Now that my mother has agreed, I'm a little scared. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. Can I really become a star? I think Wang Lin is very mature and generous in this matter. Once she has decided on something, she will work hard to achieve it. Jiang Qin pouted unhappily and said, You mean, Wang Lin is better than me? It's not that she's better than you said it. Seeing Fang Yan's helpless expression, Jiang Qin burst out laughing and said, Do you think I'm being unreasonable? Not at all. Fang Yan said very firmly. That's good. Jiang Qin nodded with satisfaction. Mr. Fang, if I really want to study music, I'll have to go to Yanjing. Yanjing is so far from Huaqing. When I come back, will you still be the current teacher Fang Yan? Of course, I'll still be the current teacher Fang Yan, Fang Yan said with a smile. Could it be that I can become another teacher Fang Yan? A single teacher Fang Yan? A single teacher Fang Yan, Fang Yan said with a nod. Jiang Qin was overjoyed at once and said, I'll remember what you said. When I come back from Yanjing, I want to see a single teacher Fang Yan. You have to do what you said or else I won't be polite to you. Of course. Fang Yan nodded. Who dares to offend the butcher's daughter? Annoying. Jiang Qin said coquettishly. They arrived at the bus stop. Fang Yan signaled Jiang Qin to go back and rest. Jiang Qin stood still and said, I'll wait for you to get on the bus. Just then, the number 19 bus arrived. Fang Yan waved his hand at Jiang Qin and said, I'm on the bus. You can go back. When the bus had gone far away, Jiang Qin stomped his feet in anger and scolded, Stinky driver, in the past, no matter how long I waited for the bus, it never came. I still wanted to talk to Teacher Fang, but you rushed over in a hurry. Do you know how much of a romantic thing you ruined? The bus stopped at the Rosefinch High School stop. Fang Yan got off the bus and walked toward the school gate. With every step Fang Yan took, there would be a duh sound behind him. Fang Yan stopped, and the voice behind him disappeared at the same time. As Fang Yan walked again, the duh sound rang in his ears again. Fang Yan suddenly turned around. A man with long hair, a big white robe and wooden clogs, was looking at him with a smile on his face. The moonlight was cold, and the man's thin face was frighteningly pale. Fang Yen stared at him with a burning gaze, and he also looked at Fang Yen with a gentle smile. Fang Yen understood that this was not an unintentional following or passing by chance. This man came for him. "Or you?" Fang Yen asked. "Chiba Shinbu," the man said aloud. He was dressed in a completely Japanese style, but he spoke authentic Wuxia language. "Chiba Shinbu, are you Chiba Haomu's father?" Fang Yen asked aloud. He understood that he had hurt the young one, and now the old one had come to seek revenge. These guys were really haunting him. "Chiba Shinbu. Chiba family's Chiba Shinbu." Chiba Shinbu said loudly. Fang Yen clenched his fists. "No matter whose father you are, no matter whose Chiba Shinbu you are, I'll beat you up first. It's very infuriating for you to dress up like this in the middle of the night to scare people, okay?" But soon, Fang Yan's fists loosened. His expression was horrified, and from the inside out, there was a strong chill all over his body. This man, he just stood there so casually, making it difficult for you to make a move. Impeccable. Chapter 211. Hitting the head wasn't right, hitting the chest wasn't right, and hitting the groin wasn't right either. Fang Yen had 10,000 ways to attack, but it seemed that every attack could be intercepted and counterattacked by the opponent. Your killer moves were actually feeding the opponent moves. Chiba Hiroshi, known as the Light of the North Star, and the #1 swordsman in Japan, had actually reached the absolute wall realm in defense. The unknown was a cliff that was tens of thousands of feet in front of him, and if he wasn't careful, he would fall. Such a sense of crisis made him cautious. The most terrifying thing in a battle was not being afraid of death, and the most taboo was not moving forward out of fear. When you lost confidence in your fists and hope for victory, then you would lose without a doubt. If you couldn't use your fists and feet, how could you talk about a great battle? Fang Yen was now facing this state of horror and fear. Yes, he was afraid. When experts fought, they often fought with their lives on the line. A superhuman 1 second ago could also become a dead man in the blink of an eye. Absolute wall experts were 1 in 10,000. This wasn't the first time he had encountered an impeccable realm expert, but that person had no reason to injure or kill him. Even Fang Yen himself couldn't think of any excuse for the person in front of him to show mercy. Whether it was to avenge his son's injury to his disciple, or to kill an expert like Wuxia, it could add color to his reputation. Fang Yen had unfulfilled dreams, and his Tai Chi heart was growing. Most importantly, he was still a virgin. He didn't want to die. Fang Yen took a deep breath, looked at Chiba Hiroshi, and said, "Are you here to avenge Chiba Haomu?" Chiba Hiroshi denied with a smile. "You defeated Chiba Haomu, but that was because he wasn't good enough with the sword. If he needed revenge, he would pick up his sword and start over again. At that time, it will be true revenge. Then what are you here for?" "You hurt Chiba Haomu, I'm still here for revenge," Fang Yen said. "You hurt Qing Yin again, Qing Yin?" Fang Yan's eyes were slightly puzzled, but they instantly cleared up. He stared coldly at Chiba Shinbutsu and said, "So, the guy who tried to sneak around in the dark after turning off the lights and tried to fish in troubled waters and got beaten half to death by me is the Qing Yin you mentioned? Did you send him to test me? Or are you thinking of letting your disciple kill me so that you, the master, won't have to show up? Unfortunately, I've disappointed you, right? Qing Yin is a ninja. He will choose the most suitable combat environment for himself." Chiba Shinobu didn't get angry and explained in a gentle voice. Chiba Haomu returned with heavy injuries, but he wasn't angry. His eldest disciple, Qing Yin, was beaten to the point of vomiting blood, but he was not angry. Ever since he entered the soulless state, there were very few things that could make him angry. Fang Yen was thoroughly enraged. He stared at Chiba Shinobu and said, "Your son attacked me from behind after the battle, so I injured him. Qing Yin sneaked into a room full of students and attacked me, so I fought back. Now you came here to stop me, and you still say you didn't want to avenge them? Why do you have to find a dignified excuse for doing such a dirty thing? Don't tell me you came here just to learn martial arts from me? If that's the case, I'll respect you. Chiba Haomu looked at the angry Fang Yan and said, "You can't fool me. Even when you're angry, your heartbeat is still balanced, your defense is still steady, and your eyes are too calm without a burning flame." Chiba Haomu stared at Fang Yan's eyes, but he knew all of Fang Yan's movements. "Why did you loosen your clenched fists? You can't do anything, so you want to provoke me?" Chiba Haomu asked with a smile. "Actually, the reason doesn't matter to me. I just think you should be a master. So I came here." "Now you're disappointed, aren't you?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Look, standing in front of you, facing a master like you, I can't even throw a punch. Although I hate your enigmatic face, as if everything is under your control. There were a few times when I wanted to rush over and throw a few punches. At that time, I really wanted to see what kind of expression you would have." "I'm not disappointed," Chiba Haomu said. "You're very strong." "You misunderstand," Fang Yan said. "Very few people can maintain a calm heart in front of me. Chiba Haomu can't, and Qingyin can only be considered half. You can laugh and scold with ease, which is already much stronger than Chiba Haomu and Qingyin." The night was as cold as water, and the dim yellow streetlights stretched the shadows of the two infinitely long. Chiba Haomu stood under a streetlight, and the light and shadow made his body and white robe inlaid with a pale yellow halo. It was a slightly prickly feeling, and it made Fang Yan's eyes uncomfortable. It was a very hazy state. Fang Yan knew where Chiba Haomu was. He saw him there and he heard him there, but he knew that he was definitely not there. He seemed to be still, but he gave people the feeling that he was swimming, like a ghost. This was the defense of the absolute wall, the defense of no gods. The reason why there were no gods was because they themselves were gods. They were false gods. "Not being afraid is a kind of strength in itself," Chiba Haomu said. "You're not as strong as I thought, but it's already very good." Before he finished speaking, Chiba Haomu's body strangely disappeared from where he stood. Then he appeared in front of Fang Yan like lightning, reaching out to grab his throat. Too fast. Unbelievably fast. A distance of more than 10 meters was covered in the blink of an eye. It was as if he had mastered the Daoist secret art of shrinking the ground into an inch, or as if he had drilled out of a strange wormhole. In just the blink of an eye, the distance of hundreds of millions of light-years had disappeared. Bang! Fang Yan felt a burning pain in his dantian. It was as if someone had raised a rifle and shot him hard in the abdomen. The heat was very oppressive and dull. It was like there was no boiling molten steel, no burning pyre. He always felt that there was something missing. Suppress and accumulate. Suppress and accumulate again. Boom, the molten steel boiled, and the pyre burned. The heart of Taiji in Fang Yan's abdomen, which was extremely quiet, suddenly spun wildly. The realm of Taiji appeared. Wherever the realm was, it was my territory. He saw the outstretched palm. It was pale, thin, snow-white, and tender. It didn't look like a hand that was holding a sword. There was no sound of wind, and it didn't look fierce. It was light, as if it was about to touch a flower or pick a fruit, and it had to catch a handful of wind and put it in front of its nose to sniff carefully. The flower-pinching Buddha, the eyes of righteousness, the wonderful heart of nirvana, and the subtle method of reality. The body of the telephone pole became twisted and tilted, and the light of the street lamp became dark and gloomy. Everything around him had undergone a strange change. Fang Yan took a step back. It was just this step. Chiba's attack failed, and Fang Yan's realm of Taiji disappeared. It was silent again. When Fang Yan sensed the extremely dangerous process of life and death, Chiba Shinobu's figure returned to its original position. It was exactly the same position as before, as if he had never left. "What is this?" Chiba looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled face. At his level, a sword was a sword, a knife was a sword, a fan was a sword, and so were chopsticks. A leaf or a flower was a sword, and so were his fingers. Just now, when he clawed at Fang Yan's throat, it was actually the claw sword that stabbed at Fang Yan's throat. A sword came, the heavenly flying fairy. Even some of the kendo experts he had defeated in the East Ocean were flustered when faced with this move of his claw sword, and they retreated several meters away. However, the guy in front of him, who was much younger than them, just dodged one step. Just by dodging one step, he had managed to avoid the 32 consecutive attacks of his chi. Heart of Taiji, Fang Yan said. Heart of Taiji? Chiba chewed on this word seriously. There was a huge difference between Wuxia and East Asia's martial arts. East Asia focused more on the extreme cultivation of fists and weapons, but Wuxia was the birthplace of Taiji. He didn't understand the various realms and miracles of Taiji, but he understood everything. With his cultivation in sword path and chi path, he could easily understand what Fang Yan meant by those words. Using inner force to fight external force, and external force to build inner force. Then absorbing the power of nature. Is this the heart of Taiji? Fang Yan knew that these peerless masters weren't ordinary people, so he didn't hide it and said, "Indeed. It's rare and precious at such a young age. I don't understand the situation in Wuxia, but if it was in East Asia, you would be the first person of your generation." Fang Yan smiled and said, "I just dodged one of your moves, and you put me in this position. Are you praising me or yourself?" Chiba didn't smile and looked at Fang Yan seriously. He said, "Coming 1,000 miles with a sword is a worthwhile trip. You are worthy of my sword." "It's not worth it," Fang Yan advised. "I can't beat you even with a hand sword. If you use a sharp sword, won't you cut me to death in 2 or 3 moves? Let's just have a casual spar. If you really break me, it won't be honorable even if you win, right? People will say that you are bullying the young and the strong. In a month, let's fight at the summit of One Sword Peak," Chiba said. "A month? Are you challenging me?" Fang Yan asked. He was a bit anxious and said, "A month is too short, isn't it? I don't think I'm ready." "How long will it take?" Chiba asked. Fang Yan thought about it and said, 30 years. In 30 years, I will wait for you at the summit of One Sword Peak to fight to the death." Chiba waved his sleeve and floated away. Fang Yan looked at his free and easy back and muttered to himself, "Say something, do you agree or not?" Chapter 212. Did he agree? Fang Yingying asked expectantly. "I don't know." Fang Yan was lying on a rattan chair in the yard, holding a cup of hot tea in his hand. Trying to drown his sorrows with tea made him even more worried. He felt that he was really innocent. He was just a little better at martial arts. How did he provoke an old monster like the Thousand Leaves Army? What competition? It was just because he beat up his son and disciple, so he wanted to reciprocate and beat him up to avenge his son and disciple. However, his son and disciple really needed to be taught a lesson, okay? What was even more infuriating was that he could beat people up, but why did he have to go to the top of the towering One Sword Peak to fight? Could it be that beating people up there was more of a sense of accomplishment? But I climbed up the mountain so hard just to be beaten up by you. What was the point? Wasn't that cheap? What do you mean by, don't know? Fang Yingying asked in a dilemma. Junior martial uncle was so annoyed. Couldn't he speak more clearly? He didn't say yes or no. He just shook his sleeves and turned around, Fang Yan said with a sigh. 30 years later will be my golden age. At that time, I might be invincible in Wuxia, and the heart of Tai Chi will be overflowing. Doesn't he want a strong opponent? Doesn't he want to improve in adversity? I can meet all his requirements. Besides, he will probably be in his 70s or 80s at that time, and his swordsmanship will be great. Why did he take advantage of me for 30 years? Why do you think he didn't agree? That's too much, Fang Haohan said. Why did he beat people up for no reason? Should we go just because he asked us to? We just won't go. We just won't give him face. Why don't we call the police? Fang Yingying said indignantly. Just say that someone tried to physically attack us. It would be even better if he left a threatening letter for junior martial uncle. Let's see how they can deny it. At that time, we can directly send them back to Japan so that they can never step into Wuxia. Fang Yen slapped Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's heads and said angrily, "You two are too disappointing. Do you still have the dignity of a martial artist? Do you still have the heart to strive for a higher level of martial arts? Poor we. He's the successor of the Fang clan's Taiji, an upright warrior of Wuxia. Now, a Japanese martial artist is challenging us. How can we run away? How can we be afraid of the police? This was a disgrace. It's not just our shame, but the shame of the entire Wuxia martial world. I, Fang Yen, would never do such a thing. Warriors are meant to fight. Non-stop fighting. Through the cruel, passionate, hot-blooded and life-or-death battles, he would search for the true meaning of supreme martial arts and the meaning of a warrior's life. What is the saddest thing in the world? A hero is short of breath, and a beauty is past her prime. If you can't fight, you'd rather die. Fang Yingying interrupted Fang Yen and asked, "Junior martial uncle, what do you mean?" "I'm going back to get reinforcements," Fang Yen said. "This is outrageous. Does he think there's no one in the Fang clan?" Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen looked at each other with an expression that said, "I knew it would be like this." Four Seasons Garden Hotel. The hotel where Summer was filming in Huaqing. The scenes of The Divine Furnace at Xiaxia Mountain had all ended, and Summer was about to end her trip to Huaqing and return to Beijing. At the same time, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had also applied to take a break from school. They would be going to Beijing to study together with Summer. In the Chinese restaurant of the hotel. Lily private room. Fang Yen was the host, giving a farewell dinner for Summer. At the same time, it was also to bid farewell to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, the two girls who had a close relationship with Fang Yen. They would leave Huaqing, the city that gave birth to her, and go to Beijing, to a distant place, to study and fight for their ideals and future. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were not in a good mood. They only ate a few mouthfuls of rice before putting down their chopsticks. The rest of the time, they silently watched Fang Yen and Summer chat. Xiaxia glanced at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said with a smile, "It seems like the two of you are very reluctant to leave Mr. Fang. My charm is not as great as Mr. Fang's, but none of you are willing to come with me." It was originally just a joke to liven up the atmosphere, but it unexpectedly made Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's expressions a little unnatural. Although they had only known Fang Yen for a short period of time, they were very dependent on him. Speaking of love, it was too far away. They were too young, and probably didn't even know what love was. However, they did like to be with Fang Yen. This was because Fang Yen was different from the boys they knew. "Sister, we just can't bear to part with Mom and Dad. It's not that we can't bear to part with Mr. Fang." Jiang Qin retorted with a red face. Originally, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin wanted to call her teacher Xia, but Xia felt that it wasn't good for her to call her big sister, which made her look younger. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin also felt that it was better to address her this way. Their relationship was closer, unlike the title of teacher, which always separated them by a layer of dignity. "That's right. Originally, my mom wanted to send me off, but she kept wiping her tears. I felt uncomfortable watching her, so I didn't let her send me off." Yuan Lin echoed. All right, I was just joking. Why did the two of you take it seriously?" Xia Ji said with a smile. "Don't be so sad. Although the distance between Yanjing and Flower City is very far, it's only 2 hours by plane. If you want, you can fly back every day to see your parents. Of course, you can't affect your studies." Xia looked at Fang Yen and said, "I've already greeted teacher Mao Xianping. He's a highly respected musician in the industry and also my first music teacher. I told him on the phone that I had sent him 2 good seedlings, and he was very happy. He's retired from school now, so he can spend more time teaching students. As for how much they can learn, that will depend on Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's own luck. Sister, don't worry. Since we have chosen this path, we will definitely work hard." Yuan Lin said with incomparable determination. "Yes, we have already thought it through. We want to be the #1 ancient instrument player in Huaxia." Jiang Qin's goal for the future was even more dazzling and brilliant. Fang Yen raised his wine glass and said, "I wish you success. Cheers." Cheers! The wine glasses in everyone's hands collided with each other. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the summer car was also waiting at the entrance of the hotel lobby. Fang Yan sent Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin downstairs. At the same time, Zhang Wei and a female assistant surnamed Chen accompanied them back to Beijing. He didn't see the actor, Feng Yuanqing, who had been sticking close to Xia Chen. It seemed that after the incident at Sky One, his relationship with Xia Chen had been affected. Xia shook hands with Fang Yan and said with a smile, "The biggest gain from coming to Flower City this time is to get to know a friend like you. Thank you for your help, and I'm sorry for all the trouble I've brought you." "Shouldn't that be left for me to say? Who doesn't want to be friends with a big star?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Come, let's take a group photo. I'll post it on Weibo to show off." Xia Chen leaned his head on Fang Yan's shoulder and said, "If you dare to post it, I don't mind." Fang Yan didn't take out his phone to take a photo in the end and said, "Forget it. I'll take a photo with you after I apply for Weibo." "I knew you wouldn't dare." Xia Chen giggled. She took out a file bag from her bag and said, "I've asked someone to investigate that ninja. Take a good look. Qin Yin, he's a very dangerous person. What's more dangerous is his master. 1,000 Leaves of the Army, the Light of the North, the #1 swordsman in Japan. It's said that countless masters have been defeated by his sword. Qin Yin and 1,000 Leaves of the Army are now in Wuxia. I don't know why they're here. Try not to clash with them head-on. If you need anything, you can call me at any time." "What you remind me is exactly what I want to remind myself. Don't worry. I'll slip away when I see the situation isn't right." Fang Yan said. "At most, I'll go back to Yanjing and join you." "You're very welcome," Xia Chen said. Xia Chen waved his hand at Fang Yan and took the lead to get into the RV. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin walked over. The two girls looked at Fang Yan with resentment. Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "If you really don't want to go, I'll talk to Xia Chen. Let's not go?" "Annoying." Yuan Lin burst out laughing and said, "I've already taken a break from school. How can I not go?" "Exactly. Why didn't you say you wouldn't let us go to Yanjing?" Jiang Qin complained. "But I didn't say I had to let you go. You're putting all the blame on me now. It's really unfair." Fang Yan said helplessly, "Humph, it's your fault. If you don't stop us, it means you want us to go." Jiang Qin said, "You must have been impatient with us for a long time. That's why you deliberately brought Sister Xia to Kate V to see us, and then let her take us away." Yuan Lin glanced at Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, you must visit us in Yanjing when you have time." "All right." Fang Yan nodded and said. Yuan Lin glanced at Jiang Qin and said, "I know you must think I'm an eyesore. Then I'll get in the car first." Jiang Qin was extremely angry, but there was nothing he could do to his best friend. "Little girl, study hard." Fang Yan looked at Jiang Qin and said, "Just like you said, become the #1 ancient instrument player in Wuxia." "I will work hard." Jiang Qin nodded and said. Her eyes bravely looked at Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, I lied just now." "What?" "Sister Xia asked us if we couldn't bear to leave you, and I said no. In fact, I really couldn't bear to leave you." Jiang Qin took off the plaid scarf around his neck and quickly wrapped it around Fang Yan's neck and said, "This is for you." The girl turned around and ran away like a frightened rabbit. She got into the RV without looking back. The RV slowly opened and soon disappeared from Fang Yan's sight. Fang Yan looked down at the wool scarf around his neck, with an ambiguous body temperature, and a fragrance like an orchid came to his nose. That was youth. Chapter 213. The auditorium was filled with a dense crowd. More than 200 students and dozens of teaching staff were gathered together, waiting for the class to officially start. Today was the day that Fang Yan would give the first-year students a big class. According to the school schedule, there were 6 classes: Class 1, Class 3, Class 5, Class 7, Class 9, and Class 11. The reason why the order was messed up was to make the grades of the students more uniform. After all, when Rosefinch recruited students, it was based on their grades in the senior high school entrance exam. The best students were naturally in Class 1, the slightly worse ones in Class 2, and the even worse ones in Class 3, so on and so forth. It wouldn't be appropriate to give lessons to the students with the best grades or the students with the worst grades at the same time. Although Fang Yan would treat every student equally, the students in the later classes would definitely think that the school or teacher Fang Yan was biased and unfair to them. In class, Fang Yan had been teaching the students that there were many unfair things in this world, but he would try his best to pursue the word fairness in dealing with people. The students were here for class, while the teachers were here to learn or to find fault. High school was different from university. In university, it was normal for professors to give big classes to students. However, high school focused more on teaching in small classes, and the students' enthusiasm for learning and discipline during class were stricter and more demanding. If the students didn't study well during the big classes and didn't follow the class rules, how could they get into the best university? If they couldn't get into the best university, how could they have the best future? However, the school had made such a decision to let Fang Yan give a big class to all the first-year students. This was undoubtedly a hard slap to the faces of the other language teachers. Fang Yan was a treasure and they were trash? Could it be that they had been misleading the students in the past? How could they be convinced by this? Hence, these teachers rushed over together. They wanted to see what kind of new knowledge and inspiration Fang Yan, Rosefinch's king of teachers, could bring to the students. If Fang Yan wanted to get by perfunctorily, then they would have to take this opportunity to launch a fierce counterattack against Fang Yan and the school's higher-ups. The class was scheduled for 2 hours from 7 to 9 in the evening. There was a 15-minute break in between. It was already 6:50 p.m., but the teacher, Fang Yan, was nowhere to be seen. It's almost time. Why isn't teacher Fang Yan here yet? Hee, I've long heard of teacher Fang Yan's name. Now, I have the chance to become his student. Let's see what kind of surprise he has for us today. Huang Haoren, has Mr. Fang ever been late to class before? Do you want to make a call and ask? The students of Class 9 discovered that they had suddenly become the focus of everyone's attention and eye-catching stars. If anyone had any questions, they would ask the students of Class 9. The auditorium was noisy, and the students were talking about it. It was as chaotic as a wet market. The last row of the auditorium was unusually quiet. More than a dozen Chinese teachers sat side by side, looking at the students in front of them and maintaining minimal communication. The language teacher of Class 3, Li Xinhua, was sitting next to Zhang Yu. Looking at Zhang Yu sitting there with a gloomy face, he didn't know what she was thinking. She looked like she shared a common enemy with him. He said angrily, "Look, is this still a lesson? The classroom is as noisy as a wet market. The students can't calm down. How are we going to start the class later?" Zhang Yu glanced at Li Xinhua and said, "Maybe Mr. Fang has some tricks up his sleeve?" Ever since Class 1 lost to Class 9 in the last language competition, Zhang Yu felt that he couldn't lift his head in school. He was also forced by the bet to go to the school's radio station to read the apology letter, which he regarded as the shame of his life. This made him hate Fang Yan to the bone. That *** flying ash fertilizer jingle, was it something an ordinary person could read? That was too much. It was also because he lost so badly last time that Zhang Yu didn't dare to be too full of himself. Otherwise, he might be the one to lose face. I want to see what new things he can teach the students today. Li Xinshu said with a face full of sarcasm, "If the students are not satisfied, we have to report it to the school. Even if Mr. Fang has a close relationship with a certain school board member, he can be the vice principal or directly the principal. As a teacher, wouldn't that be misleading the students?" Zhang Yu had also heard of the scandal between Fang Yan and the school board member Lu Chaoge. The truth of the matter could be ignored, but in his opinion, Fang Yan did have some ability. Otherwise, how could the Class 1 he led lose to Class 9? It should be known that this time Class 1 lost not because Class 1 didn't do well, but because Class 9 did too well. Class 1 performed well as a whole this time. Except for Qin Etienne and Tang Qing, the other students still performed at their best level in Rosefinch. Zhang Yu didn't like Fang Yan's character, but he didn't think that Fang Yan was an idiot without real ability who relied on women to get ahead. Let's wait a little longer, Zhang Yu said. Time's up. The light above the auditorium's rostrum lit up. A lonely spotlight. Fang Yan walked out from the backstage on time. The spotlight followed him all the way, like a bright sun following his head. He was wearing a black rosefinch Chinese tunic suit. The jacket was unbuttoned, revealing the snow-white shirt inside. His hair was combed casually, and there was a gentle and charming smile on his face. At this time, Fang Yan had the elegance of a knowledgeable person. He was elegant and handsome. His appearance alone caused the students to scream and applaud enthusiastically. "Mr. Fang, you're so handsome." "Lu Dehua, Mr. Fang, you look like Lu Dehua." "Like Tang Zhong?" "He can even pretend to be a woman." "Tang Zhong is the handsome one." Li Xinhua curled his lips and sneered, "Are you here to teach or to sing? You don't look like a teacher. You look more like a third-rate singer trying to please the crowd." Zhang Yu frowned slightly and didn't answer. Fang Yan held the microphone in the corner of his clothes and glanced at the students below the stage with a smile. The students looked up at Fang Yan with the same inexplicable smile on their faces. Even though Fang Yan hadn't started his lecture, both the teacher and the students already felt that this would be a pleasant night. They didn't feel any pressure when facing their teacher, Fang Yan, nor did they feel a sense of urgency to learn. They were like close friends who just gathered together to chat. "What is Kung Fu?" Fang Yan asked. The microphone spread his voice to every corner of the auditorium. The audience suddenly became silent. Could it be that the class had officially started? What did this question mean? They weren't here to learn Chinese. What did this have to do with Kung Fu? Only now did the students remember that Fang Yan came empty-handed. He didn't bring the first-year Chinese textbook. As for the lesson plan, the students of Class 9 said that they had never seen such a thing. It had to be said that teacher Fang Yan wasn't a diligent teacher. "Does anyone know?" Fang Yan looked around and asked again, "What is Kung Fu?" "Southern fist and northern leg, Shaolin Wudong Gong. Kung Fu is our Wuxia martial arts. Kung Fu can be used to attack and defend. Stephen Chow's movie is Kung Fu." Seeing that Fang Yan was really asking this question, the students' interest was immediately piqued, and all kinds of strange answers were thrown out. At first, a dozen people answered, then dozens of people answered. In the end, all the students were rushing to answer and argue, and the big classroom became a pot of porridge again. Fang Yan gestured for everyone to quiet down and said, "Everyone's answer is correct. Kung Fu is southern fist and northern leg, Shaolin Wudong Gong. It can be used to attack and defend, and it's also Stephen Chow's movie. Tonight, I will show you the profound world of our Wuxia martial arts. I want to let you know what real Kung Fu is." Fang Yan waved his hand, and a dozen men in black shorts rushed up with soft knives in their hands. The leader was Zhang Chen, the Wang Pai coach of the glorious martial arts school next door. Zhang Chen stood alone in front of the knife, and the other students scattered and arranged in a beautiful fan shape. Exciting music sounded, and a man's beautiful and calm voice rang through the whole audience. "The people who have been asleep for 100 years are gradually waking up, ah," the students screamed out. "For this gorgeous scene, for this familiar song." "Ha!" Zhang Chen slashed out with his knife, and it was earth-shattering. More than a dozen students behind him slashed out with their knives at the same time, and their strength broke the sky. "Open your eyes and look carefully. Who is willing to admit?" Zhang Chen had a knife on his head, and his body did a 180-degree somersault. Ah! More than a dozen students had knives on their heads, and their bodies did a 180-degree somersault. "Open your mouth and shout, shout loudly. This is a country full of soldiers, and bandits have always been invading, and they will die." The music became more and more exciting, and the knife array performed by the martial arts students led by Zhang Chen became more and more wonderful and exciting. The music was the background of the knife array, and it made the knife array more imposing. The knife array was the body of the music, and it gave the music an unruly soul. The music was desolate and tragic, but it contained endless power. The knife light and the sword shadow, and the men's roar filled the world with hope, and everyone present was full of confidence to win. The Great Wall never falls, and the Yellow River surges for thousands of miles. Chapter 214. The mountains are beautiful and the mountains are colorful. The saber array kept changing its formation. Saber light flashed and shadows flashed. Ask me which part of the country looks like a disease. Zhang Chen flipped 16 times on the stage with a saber in his hand. While doing so, he kept changing the moves of his saber, creating beautiful saber flowers. The other students followed closely behind him and did 16 flips. Let's open up a path of blood. We must devote ourselves to the prosperity of our country. How can we let our country be trampled again? The sleeping lion is waking up. Ha ha! Zhang Chen and the students merged into one, like the thousand flowers Guanyin, forming a long line of slaughter that was impossible to guard against. The long line danced on the stage with a powerful momentum, sweeping away everything in its path. The music ended, and the saber array stopped. Zhang Chen waved his hand, and the students behind him moved forward in small steps, forming a neat human wall with him at the center. Salute! Zhang Chen shouted. All of them raised their sabers with one hand and pointed the tip at the roof of the auditorium. Clatter! The audience burst into thunderous applause. Zhang Chen led his disciples away from the stage. The students below the stage were still extremely excited. So cool! Those saber wielders were so cool. Amazing! This is martial arts, the real Wuxia Kung Fu. Those guys always beat us up. What is Kung Fu? Fang Yin asked. This time, he did not wait for an answer. He gave his own answer. It's not just fighting and defending, it's not just fighting and sports. It's the culture of Wuxia, the national confidence, the unyielding soul, and the invincible capital. In the text, Banquet at Hongmen, Xiang Zhuang performed a sword dance with the intention of killing Duke Pei. This sentence clearly tells us that Xiang Zhuang must be an expert swordsman. Otherwise, why would Fan Zeng summon him to perform a sword dance to kill Liu Bang? When Fan Kuai learned that Xiang Yu wanted to kill Liu Bang, he said, "This is the last resort. Please come in and share the same fate." With sword and shield in hand, Kuai entered the army gate. Fan Kuai slammed his shield into the guard, causing the guard to fall to the ground, allowing Kuai to enter the camp. If Fan Kuai's martial arts were weak, would he have dared to barge into the camp with a shield? If he wasn't strong enough, I'm afraid he wouldn't even be able to deal with the soldiers at the entrance of the barracks, let alone the guards and Kuai Sui. Isn't that right? The students below the stage roared with laughter. They had just listened to the blood-boiling music and seen the blood-boiling saber array. While they were madly in love with Wuxia's martial arts, Fang Yen just happened to closely connect Wuxia's martial arts with the texts they had studied, which made them feel very immersed and had a strong desire to learn and understand. At this time, it was no longer Fang Yen forcing them to learn something, but they were eager to learn something. Fang Yen didn't bring his textbooks, but the students did. When Fang Yen was talking about the banquet at Hongmen, the sound of pages being turned rang out from the audience. They wanted to find the original text and read it again, so that they could understand the essence of the text and think about the stories of the characters in the text. When they were studying, everyone's focus was on the two main characters, Liu Bang and Xiang Yu. Now, when Fang Yen specifically mentioned Xiang Zhuang and Fan Kuai, it immediately aroused everyone's interest in their lives. Why did Prince Dan send Jing Ku to assassinate King Qin? It must be because Jing Ku's martial arts and wisdom are outstanding. When they were studying the text, there was a character that they didn't pay much attention to. That was Jing Ku's deputy, Qin Weiyang. What did Jing Ku want to do? He wanted to assassinate the most powerful overlord at that time. It's widely acknowledged that Jing Ku was outstanding in ability and martial arts. Why was Qin Weiyang chosen to carry out the mission together with Jing Ku? Qin Weiyang is not a simple character. When he was 12 years old, he had killed someone, and no passerby dared to look him in the eye. It's not hard to imagine that he is a very cruel man. Although he is good at killing, he doesn't have extraordinary wisdom. It's written very clearly in the book. When Qin Huiyang arrived at the bottom of the steps of King Qin's grand hall with the map in his hand, his expression changed dramatically, and he was very scared. The officials of the Qin state felt very strange about this. In the end, Jing Ke's assassination failed, and he had to bear the main responsibility. Therefore, there's a saying in martial arts: train the muscles, bones, and skin externally, and train the spirit internally. If one only has a strong skin and flesh, and doesn't have the spirit in his heart, he won't be able to achieve great things. Qin Huiyang is a very typical example. Fang Yan clapped his hands, and Fang Yingying, dressed in a white tang suit, ran out with a sword in his hand. Clear music began to play. This time, it was Gu Zheng's version of Guangling's San. Fang Yingying began to dance with the sword in his hand. His movements were so light and graceful that people forgot that he was a fatso. Everyone must be familiar with this kind of kung fu. That's right, this is the Tai Chi that we often talk about. Wuxia Kung Fu has a profound connotation, and the core of its ideology is Confucianism's neutralization of qi. Just now, we were talking about why Qin Huiyang failed. It's because he didn't know how to cultivate qi. He didn't have that energy in his body, and it was too difficult for him to reach the next level. He didn't perform well on the spot, and he was nervous and scared. That's why Qin's state found out about his abnormality. Martial artists need to cultivate qi, but don't scholars need to cultivate qi? We also need to cultivate qi, and what we need to cultivate is awe-inspiring righteousness. There is righteousness in the world, and everything has its shape. Below it are the rivers and mountains, and above it are the sun and stars. Humans have awe-inspiring righteousness. They don't fear the small, and even ghosts and gods can't get close to them. Teacher, how do we cultivate awe-inspiring righteousness? A student asked loudly. Is it to get closer to Huang Haoren? Fang Yan laughed and said, getting closer to Huang Haoren is also cultivating awe-inspiring righteousness. Don't we often say? What kind of person is with what kind of person? In my eyes, Huang Haoren is a student with righteousness. Wow, the eyes of the students in the 9th class were all focused on Huang Haoren's face. To be praised by teacher Fang Yan in front of more than 200 students and dozens of teachers, this guy was too lucky, right? The students in other classes who knew Huang Haoren all cast envious eyes at him. Some who didn't know Huang Haoren were also asking around who Huang Haoren was. Huang Haoren's face suddenly turned red, like a cooked crab. His eyes were red, and his body kept trembling. Huang Haoren? The students in the 9th class shouted Huang Haoren's name loudly. Huang Haoren, Huang Haoren, Huang Haoren. All the students in the audience were shouting this name that might or might not be familiar. Because of Fang Yan's words, Huang Haoren became the star hero of the audience. Huang Haoren stood up and bowed deeply to the position where Fang Yan stood. Clatter. The students applauded enthusiastically. They didn't know why, but they felt this scene was very touching. Fang Yan waved his hand, signaled everyone to be quiet, and said, just now, a student asked me how to cultivate awe-inspiring righteousness, and I think this question is very good. Reading to nourish the mind, writing to cultivate qi. Doing good and accumulating virtue can lead to awe-inspiring righteousness. For us, this is not a difficult thing. It is also something that is easily ignored by us. After Fang Yingying finished his Tai Chi sword dance, he bowed to the audience with a serious face. The students burst into laughter at the sight of his comical appearance. However, they still didn't forget to give this fatso a warm applause. The third to go on stage was Fang Haoren. He held a high stack of glasses and walked to the stage. Huaxia's Kung Fu is rooted in Confucianism, and it also blends with Taoism's keeping quiet and softness. For example, the Tai Chi sword performance we saw just now. There is also the meditation of Buddhism, which is also the culture of Buddhism. Thus, it forms a broad and profound martial arts system. Fang Haoren stood behind Fang Yan. After bowing to the audience, he grabbed a glass and threw it on the ground. After a crisp sound, the glass was smashed into pieces. The students in the audience were puzzled. Is this guy sick? Why did he run to the rostrum and smash the glass? Is this also Hua Xia's kung fu? Even Fang Yan couldn't help but look back at Fang Haohen. This silly guy, I asked you to come up to perform eating glass, not to smash glass. Fang Haohen squatted down, picked up a piece of glass from the ground and put it in his mouth, chewing it. Oh my God, he actually ate the glass into his stomach? Are you serious? It's not a fake glass, right? Can you let me touch it? It's so disgusting, punching and kicking, tripping and grappling, wielding knives and swords, jumping on roofs and running on walls. Even the dangerous people who are eating glass behind me are all part of Hua Xia's kung fu. People often ask, does Hua Xia's kung fu really exist? The answer is beyond doubt. Fang Yan waved his hand. Fang Haohen, who was chewing glass, threw a glass to Fang Yan reluctantly. Fang Yan took the glass, put his hands together, and wrapped it in his palms. He rubbed his hands quickly, and white smoke came out from the gaps between his fingers. When he opened his palms again, the students only saw a puddle of white powder. He gently blew on the powder, and the white powder danced in the air. It fluttered like fine snowflakes. Wow! The students were all dumbfounded. How could this work? Teacher Fang Yan couldn't be playing magic, right? Students, today's class ends here, Fang Yan said with a smile. Goodbye. Fang Yan turned around and was ready to leave. Acting cool to this extent was already quite satisfactory. There was no need for another word, no need for a wave of the hand, and no need for an extra look. At this moment, the smile on Fang Yan's face suddenly froze. His pupils widened, and he had a look of disbelief. At the entrance of the auditorium, a woman stood leaning against the door. Black leather jacket, black leather pants. Clean and neat short black hair, and a black scarf tied around her neck. She had a mocking smile on her face, but her eyes were as bright and beautiful as the stars in the sky. She walked through the long corridor, past countless tables, chairs, and students, and walked step by step towards Fang Yan. She grabbed the textbook of a student in the front row, and with a light tap of her sexy high heels on the cement floor, she leaped onto the stage and stood in front of Fang Yan. But she swung the textbook and hit Fang Yan's head. Again. But she swung the textbook and hit Fang Yan's head for the second time. Again. But she swung the textbook and hit Fang Yan's head for the third time. Again. Chapter 215. Fang Ying grabbed Fang Haohen, who wanted to go back to the stage, and said, Stop them? If they really want to fight, can you stop them? They can send you flying with just one move. Bang. But I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I die with you? Fang Haohen asked with a confused face, holding a few unfinished glasses. Junior Marshal Uncle asked you to call back for help. Who did you call? Fang Haohen was simple and honest, but he was not an idiot. After listening to Fang Yingying's words, he immediately became suspicious of his behavior. That's true. Qin Yitian said softly. Know yourself and know your enemy, so that you can win 100 battles. At least, I need to know what kind of woman my opponent is. She was really handsome when she hit Mr. Fang. Was this a stage play? But what was wrong with that woman? What was wrong with the woman who whipped Fang Yan's head again and again with a textbook? Fang Haohen looked at Fang Yingying in surprise and said, You knew that Miss Yi would come? How could it be like this? How could there be someone who could beat Fang Yan so easily and casually? And it was a woman? Tang Qing hurriedly stopped Qin Yitian and said, Qin, wait. His cheeks twitched and his eyes were moist. Tears were swirling in his eyes. He tried to raise his face and not let the aggrieved tears slide down his cheeks. He really cried. Was this a movie? Yuan Ro, this woman really went too far. Such a smile was amazing, but it also gave people a kind of indescribable fear. Fang Yan cried. That woman's behavior was too bold. That woman's posture was too handsome. That woman's smile was too charming. That woman's bitch sounded really bitchy. Impossible, Fang Haohen said. Master doesn't use a cell phone at all. He spends most of his time in a drunken stupor. How would he answer your call? Fang Yingying was angry and said, Even you know this fact, how can I not know? When I called Master, it was Miss Yi who picked up. What did Miss Yi ask? How could I not answer? How dare I not answer? If I asked you, would you dare to hang up? Through the incident of Chiba Haomu getting injured and the conversation between her father and Clear Shadow, she knew exactly how powerful Fang Yan was. Qin Etian arrived late, and the front row was occupied by students from other classes, so she randomly found a seat in the back row and sat down. When Tang Cheng saw Qin Etian coming, he took the initiative to run from the front to the back to sit with her. Don't worry, said Fang Haohan. Of course I'm on your side. After all, you're my brother. He glared at Yi Ro with a face full of anger, glaring at the culprit who kicked him, who was on his way to becoming a god, into hell. Without a doubt, if someone dared to stand up and shout for them to stop at this moment, they would definitely be beaten to death. Slept. Wuxia. Sure enough, I didn't come here for nothing. Chiba Sun sighed in her heart. Don't worry. There won't be a fight. Fang Yingying said with a relaxed expression, Junior Martial Uncle wants to fight, but if he did that, wouldn't he be asking to be humiliated? Junior Martial Uncle is a smart person. He wouldn't do something that's not good for himself. In the past, she would beat him up every year. Although Fang Yan was very angry and tried to take revenge, he endured it. Fang Yingying hurriedly denied and said, I don't know. How would I know that Miss Yi would come? I don't know anything. Fang Haohan, I'm warning you, don't talk nonsense in front of Junior Martial Uncle. Otherwise, don't blame me for not calling you when there's something good in the future. If people knew that the clouds in the sky were too far away, who would chase after them endlessly? Of course it's for Master, Fang Yingying replied stubbornly. Qin Etian thought for a moment and pursed his lips into a smile. Seeing Fang Yan's actions and expression, Fang Haohan panicked and said, This is bad. Junior Martial Uncle is probably going to fight with Miss Yi. Junior Martial Uncle cares about his reputation the most. If Miss Yi hits him in front of so many people, he will definitely feel very embarrassed. What should we do? We have to rush over to stop them? Oh, it wasn't like this, the script wasn't written like this. Fang Yan's dantian was ignited. His fists were clenched tightly. All the vertebrae in his body were pulling, making a strange cracking sound. Besides, I only asked her to pass on our situation to Master. How would I know that she would come by herself? Fang Haohan, this time you must stand on my side. If Junior Martial Uncle asks, I will say that I also don't know how Miss Yi came. You have to be a witness for me, understand? No one picked it up, no one noticed it at all. Yi Ro crossed her arms in front of her chest, looking at Fang Yan with disdain, whose anger was constantly rising. Now, I'm far away from Yanjing, secretly running to the southernmost Huaqing of the country. Why does Yi Ro come over to bully and beat me? Chapter 216. Mom. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan felt like being struck by lightning. They were shocked by the way Fang Yan addressed Yi Ro. How could the powerful, violent, and beautiful Miss Yi Ro become Junior Martial Uncle's mother? Yi Wenru beat her martial uncle like Ultraman beating little monsters. It had become a norm in her life. How could these two people be mother and son? Which mother would be willing to beat her son like this? Fang Yingying thought sadly. He felt sorry for Junior Martial Uncle. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan knew what was going on, so they were only shocked by Fang Yan's shamelessness and guilt. They knew that they were shameless, but they did not know about Ho Yong's lazy lifestyle. But the audience who didn't know the truth suddenly burst into an uproar. Did you hear that? Mr. Fang called that woman mother. Oh my God, Mr. Fang's mother is so young and beautiful, I don't know how she takes care of herself. No way? My companions and I were all stunned. The whip queen in my heart is Mr. Fang's mother? Then I have no hope at all? I don't think so. They don't look alike at all. How could a mother beat her son like this? Is she Mr. Fang's girlfriend? They look like a good match. Tang Qing felt a little regret in his heart. He turned to Qin Etian and said, Now their relationship is clear. The one who beat him is Mr. Fang's mother. Fortunately, you didn't go on the stage just now, or I don't know how to end it. Now you can rest assured, right? It was not easy to find an opponent who could compete with Qin Yitian, and it was a woman whose aura was not inferior to that of Qin Yitian. If she could win over Mr. Fang Yan, then the success rate of pursuing Qin Yitian would increase by several percentage points. Such an outstanding woman. How did she become Mr. Fang's mother? Qin Yitian looked at Yi Rou thoughtfully. This woman is very interesting. As for Tangqing's question, she didn't even bother to answer it. Only an idiot would believe that this woman was Fang Yan's mother. Can you understand Fang Yan's difficulties? He couldn't let the news of him being beaten up by a woman spread throughout the entire school. No, it was very likely that it would spread throughout Huaqing. He couldn't allow his image as a male idol to collapse. He couldn't allow himself to become a joke among the teachers and students. He was the Fang Yan with ideals, dignity, and face, not the Fang Yan who had been hit 3 times on the head by a woman holding a book. As a teacher, Fang Yan was too embarrassed to punish his students in this way. Yi Rou, that woman. Of course, she had done worse things, so it was not difficult for Fang Yan to accept. If it weren't for the humiliation, if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to be beaten up by Yi Rou every year in front of the elders and juniors of the Fang and Yi families, and if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to become a joke of the other families again, they would greet each other by asking, "Is Fang Yan awake today?" If it weren't for these reasons, why would he run away to be a teacher? But weren't there too many people today? Wasn't the scene a little too grand? Forced to do so, Fang Yan had to use this ultimate move. Men were bitter and tired. Men worked hard to earn money to support their families, but they were often punished to kneel. If it was the wife who hit the man, others would think that the man was really a grandson. If it was the mother who hit the man, others would think that the man was really a filial son. The reason why Fang Yan called Yi Rou mom was actually to make others misunderstand that it was a family conflict. Besides, wasn't it a natural thing for a mother to hit her son? When they secretly talked about how pitiful Mr. Fang was, they would also add, "Mr. Fang is really a gentle and filial man, right? Mom." The smile on Yi Rou's face instantly became extremely stiff. Because of the anger and shyness, her ears were smeared with a layer of red. Obviously, she didn't expect that Fang Yan would fight back in this way. "Fang Yan, it seems that you haven't changed a bit after not seeing you for a long time." Yi Rou stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said in a cold voice. "You haven't changed a bit either. You used to hit me and you still hit me now," Fang Yan said. After saying that, he remembered that there was a loudspeaker on his collar, so he quickly turned around and waved to the students under the stage, saying, "Class dismissed, students dismissed. Go back and have a good rest." No one left. Not a single person left. Everyone sat quietly and looked at Fang Yan expectantly, waiting for the development of the story. Yes, Fang Yan didn't see it wrong. They were indeed expectantly. Their eyes were shining as if aliens were about to appear. Fang Yan felt very hurt. Usually, these guys kept saying that they liked Mr. Fang the most. Now, when Mr. Fang was in trouble, they didn't ask for their help but just wanted them to leave quietly. They couldn't even do such a small request. Some bastards even raised their mobile phones to take pictures of him. Bastards, what do you mean by taking pictures? How can you take pictures of such an embarrassing scene? "If you don't go, I'll go," Fang Yan said angrily. He turned around and was about to leave. The sooner he left, the better. Staying here would only make him more embarrassed. Click. The slender high heels on Yi Rou's feet moved a step and once again blocked Fang Yan's way with her tall and exquisite body. Fang Yan raised his eyebrows and said, "Mom, I know you have some misunderstandings about me. Can we talk about these things at home?" "There are all my students in the audience. Won't we be a joke if we stand here and make a noise? You used to call me stinky bitch, but now you call me mom." Yi Rou sneered. "You've been a teacher for a few months. Have you become more civilized? Stinky bitch? What's stinky bitch?" Fang Yan said in a low voice. He turned off the loudspeaker so that those guys in the audience wouldn't hear their conversation. "When did I call you stinky bitch? I don't remember this kind of thing at all. A good man doesn't fight with a woman, and a good dog doesn't stand in the way. That's what you said, right?" "Did I say that?" Fang Yen thought about it seriously and said, "Maybe you did? We have a dog at home, and it always stands in my way." "That dog is called Wenro," Yi Ro answered. "I've seen it. I've even fed it meat buns." Fang Yen was furious and said, "Who gave it this name? How could such a mighty and domineering dog have such a feminine name? I clearly named it Dong Men Chue Shue." "Miss Yi, I think there are a lot of misunderstandings between us. Go back with me and I'll explain it to you. If you're not satisfied with my explanation, you can hit me again, okay? Now you want to explain?" Yi Ro looked at Fang Yen with a sneer and said, "You ran away from home and abandoned the annual competition agreement between the Yi and Fang families, leaving me to deal with it alone. Why didn't you think of explaining at that time? Write a letter and ask someone to send it to me? Stinky bitch, an old man doesn't fight with a woman, and a good dog doesn't stand in the way. I left and never saw you again. This was written by you. I didn't miss a word, did I? Why didn't you think of explaining at that time? You scolded me as the ugliest woman in Yanjing, the leader of the Yaksha clan, the first honorary president of the International Union of Ugly Women, and I didn't need makeup to act in a horror film. You said you never worried about the World War, but worried that I couldn't get married. You raised a Pekingese and named it Yi Ro. When you were free, you threw your dirty shoes and stinky socks out and let it pick them up. You called me mom in front of so many people. Do you think I'm a fool? If I'm not stupid, why would I give you a chance to explain?" Fang Yen looked at Yi Ro shyly and said with embarrassment, "You know all these? Is there anything else you want to add?" "Actually, your summary is very complete," Fang Yen said. "Can you tell me who betrayed me? And then I'll beat him after I'm beaten." Fang Yan's tone suddenly became murderous. "Is it Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan? I knew they didn't have good intentions when they came to Flower City to find me. Maybe they're the spies you sent." Yi Ro smiled and looked at Fang Yen. "Fang Yen, after so many years, you must not know a secret." "What secret?" "I like you when you're shameless." Fang Yan's heart thumped wildly as he asked in pleasant surprise, "Is what you said true?" "Of course," Yi Ro said. "In that case, I won't feel guilty when I beat you. I feel sorry for myself if I don't beat you. Can you understand this feeling?" As soon as Yi Ro finished her words, she leaped into the air and grabbed at Fang Yan's neck like a dragonfly playing with a cat or an eagle fighting a tiger. Fang Yan turned his body and quickly dodged Yi Ro's attack. Yi Ro's ability to stay in the air was very strong. When her right hand missed, she waved her left hand again. With his right foot as the center, Fang Yen fled to the periphery in 360 degrees. Yi Ro's hands attacked quickly, dazzling people's eyes. Fang Yan's body spun like a tornado, making people unable to tell the real body from the illusion. Spin! Spin again! Plum blossom steps, cross doppelganger steps, drunken crane riding the wind. Pow! Fang Yan's chest was punched by Yi Ro. His body flew backward and crashed into the wall behind the curtain. Yi Ro landed on the ground with one foot and then leaped into the air again with her high heels. She chased after Fang Yen. Her feet turned into spears and kicked at Fang Yen as fast as lightning. Bang, 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 bang. Fang Yan's body was hit by Yi Ro's cloud-piercing kick. His body rose infinitely and hit the high dome of the auditorium. Clang! Fang Yan's head went through the glazed roof. Half of his body was outside and the other half was swaying below. "There's a hole in the roof!" some students exclaimed. Chapter 217. Is this a movie? Where's the camera? I already knew that our teacher Fang would enter the entertainment industry one day. This isn't a dream, right? Pinch me. F***CK, which son of a bitch pinched me? Mr. Fang, is he still alive? If the scene of Yi Ro hitting Fang Yan's head with a book was just an appetizer, what they saw now was the real feast. It was wonderful. It was exciting. It was violent. It was fantastical. It was dangerous. And it was so beautiful. They were worried about the safety of Fang Yan. They strongly condemned the violent behavior of the woman in black in their hearts. However, They really wanted to continue watching. What would the next plot be like? Would the woman in black continue to fight and cripple Mr. Fang Huahua and make him unable to lift his head for the rest of his life? Would Fang Yen fall to the bottom of the valley and turn into a Super Saiyan, beat the woman in black violently, take off her high heels, tear her black leather coat, and hang her on the roof to bask in the moonlight? It was so exciting to think about it. Yi Rou's body landed lightly on the ground. She was not in a hurry, as if there was a breeze and white clouds around her feet. Click. The slender and sharp high heels on her feet made a crisp and sexy sound when they nailed to the ground. The scarf on her neck was still flying with the wind. Her short black hair was moving up and down, making her look free and easy and handsome. Yi Rou looked up at Fang Yen, who was hanging on the roof pretending to be a mummy, and shouted, "Fang Yen, come down." No one answered. "Do you think playing dead will work?" Yi Rou said with a sneer. Fang Yan's body fell from the roof, which made the audience scream again and again. Fang Yan stretched out his hand and combed his hair. His hairstyle, which he had specially taken care of before class and had applied a lot of hair gel, looked more supple and stylish. Just now, when he had used his head to drill through the roof, although he had pierced through the roof, his hair had also been flattened. You may never know what hairstyle means to a man. Especially a man who is not good-looking. Don't laugh, women are the same. Fang Yen tidied himself up and looked at Yi Wen shyly. "I didn't expect that I couldn't fool you even with this. You know how to use drunken crane riding the wind, but I'm more familiar with it than you are. Trying to show off in front of an expert, you're really seeking your own death." Just now, when Fang Yen was running in circles, he accidentally used drunken crane rides the wind. In other people's eyes, this was a mysterious footwork, which could be used to escape or kill enemies. However, this move gave Yi Rou a chance to attack. Just as Yi Rou had said, Fang Yen knew drunken crane riding the wind, but Yi Rou was better at it than him. The creator of drunken crane riding the wind was the old drunkard. Fang Yen and Yi Rou had learned this unique skill from him. Although Fang Yen had learned it and was proficient in it, he didn't know it as well as Yi Rou, who often drank and practiced with the old drunkard. Yi Rou dissected drunken crane riding the wind's 36 big steps and the 81 small steps contained in it like a butcher dissecting an ox. A genius girl naturally had her own strengths. In Yi Rou's eyes, Fang Yan's movements were full of flaws. This was also the reason why she kicked Fang Yen away with her cloud steps. Fang Yen smiled awkwardly and said, "I get nervous when I see you. I'm so nervous that I forget my opponent is Yi Rou. If this is all you have, the chance of you escaping from Chiba Bing's sword is almost zero," Yi Rou said with a sneer. "You'll be the first person he kills when he travels to Hua Xia's North Star Sword. Shouldn't I congratulate you?" "Yi Rou, don't think that I can't beat you, then come." Yi Rou waved at Fang Yen. Fang Yan's legs were staggered, and his body was slightly short. His two arms were wrapped around each other, as if he was holding a huge transparent goldfish bowl. He practiced stance before boxing. This was the Fang Plum Blossom stance. In Fang Yan's eyes, drunken crane riding the wind was better at close combat. However, because his opponent was Yi Rou, a woman who was better at that kind of footwork, he could only give it up and choose the more stable Fang Plum Blossom steps. People who practiced martial arts placed great importance on stance. If you practiced boxing without martial arts, you'd end up with nothing. That skill mentioned here was referring to the stance. In other words, stance. An unstable lower body was a big taboo, as it could create opportunities for the opponent. If you weren't careful, your head would be smashed by a punch. Therefore, Fang Yen, who had high hopes from his family when he was born, started practicing stance the moment he learned how to walk. Plum Blossom steps was what he was most familiar with and understood. Years of practice and comprehension had become part of his body's footwork. Even when he was walking, he couldn't help but use the steps in Plum Blossom steps. Fang Yen crooked his finger at Yi Rou, indicating that she should attack this time. Yi Rou didn't stand on ceremony. With a tap of her toes, she leaped up again. Yi Rou was tall, but her movements were extremely agile. When she flipped and rolled in the air, she looked like a sparrow, which earned her the nickname Nine Heaven Sparrow. More importantly, her ability to stay in the air was very good. Some people said that the highest level of Tai Chi was to merge one's body with nature, becoming one with nature. Yi Rou entered the Tao querying realm at a young age. Her body was like the wind, the moon, the mountains, the rivers, and the seas. She could be small or big, high or low. Even now, it was still a legend in the circle. This was also the reason why Yi Wenrou, who was at the Tao querying realm, could easily beat Fang Yan up like a dog in the annual competition between the Yi and Fang families. Under Yi Rou's pressure, Fang Yan finally entered the Tai Chi realm with the honor of being the youngest in the family. He had thought that the two of them could be evenly matched. If Fang Yan performed well, he could even break Yi Rou's winning record. To his surprise, perhaps because he was too nervous or there was something wrong with his cultivation method, the Tai Chi whirlpool that flowed like spring water suddenly stopped and disappeared. Fang Yan couldn't feel the heart of Tai Chi at all. Without the heart of Tai Chi, how could he enter the Tai Chi realm? In this case, if Fang Yan fought, he would definitely die. So, he ran away shamefully. Whoosh! Yi Rou leaped into the air and stood upright at a 90-degree angle. From top to bottom, she stepped on Fang Yan's head with the force of Mount Tai. The slender high-heeled shoe was like a sharp blade that could cut through iron like mud, stabbing fiercely and rapidly at the top of Fang Yan's head. She knew that Fang Yan's Tai Chi cultivation was not shallow. If he didn't have some strength, it would be impossible for him to enter the Tai Chi realm that all martial artists yearned for. Therefore, she didn't plan to fight with her face to face, which would waste too much time. Instead, she pressed down from above and beat him down with a violent method that was far beyond his strength. This was also her first choice when she bullied and humiliated Fang Yan countless times. Of course, sometimes when she was really annoyed, she would also play some tricks. Just the falling majesty of a woman made Fang Yan feel that the dark clouds were rolling and a heavy rain was coming. It seemed that the sky was getting lower and lower, that the starry sky was about to fall, and that a planet was about to hit the earth where they were, boom. Fang Yan's dantian seemed to be on fire, and a strong stream of air flowed around his body. It flashed like an electric shock, and then everything went back to normal in an instant. The heart of Tai Chi was activated again, and the Tai Chi realm appeared again. Without looking up, Fang Yan could clearly see Yi Rou's attack in the distance between her pointed high-heeled shoe and his head. He didn't need to look far to see the contradictory expressions of panic and excitement of the students in the audience, and even the students' breathing and uncontrollable praises. "That woman is so cool. God descends to the world. She jumped so high." Fang Yan was agitated, and the Tai Chi realm almost disappeared. He hurriedly calmed himself down and ran on the plum blossom stakes, and then grabbed Yi Rou's ankle with both hands. Bang. Got it. In my region, all the territories are my territory, and all the people are my subjects. Yi Rou was no exception. Fang Yan's body sprinted even faster and spun even faster. He held one of Yi Rou's ankles with both hands and made her run and spin with him. Fang Yan's body spun like a top, and Yi Rou's body was also spun like a top. Fang Yan's phantom turned into a plum blossom, and so did Yi Rou's body. After removing all the strength from Yi Rou's body, Fang Yan grabbed her ankle with one hand and punched her chest with the other. Boom! After a loud bang, the two of them were instantly torn apart by the strong airflow. At the critical moment, Yi Rou's fist collided with Fang Yan's. It was a heavy punch against a heavy punch, and a hard bone against a hard bone. It caused one's blood vessels to expand, and the bones in one's body to crackle. Yi Rou's feet landed on the ground. Fang Yan stared at Yi Rou in astonishment. "How did you do it?" Fang Yan asked. "You can break my Tai Chi realm." Because of the power of the Tai Chi realm, Fang Yan was full of confidence in it. In the Tai Chi realm, he was the well-deserved king. However, when he thought he had completely neutralized Yi Rou's chi, Yi Rou was able to fight back at the critical moment when he punched at Yi Rou's chest. Is this woman an unkillable cockroach? Is there anything in the world that can't stop her? Yi Rou wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, which was forced out by the internal chi. She stared at Fang Yan with her shining eyes and asked, "Did the heart of Tai Chi come back to life?" Fang Yen smiled proudly and said, "Not only did it come back to life, but also the rotation of the heart vortex became stronger. There is running water at the head of the spring, and the qi is endless. Yi Ro, do you really think you can beat me? I showed you mercy, but you are aggressive. Do you think I dare not beat you? If you were not a woman." Yi Ro squinted her eyes and smiled, saying, "If not?" Fang Yen thought about it seriously and realized that he really couldn't do anything to Yi Ro. Such an answer made him very depressed and discouraged. He felt that life was really meaningless. Yi Ro's eyes became fierce again and she said, "If that's all, you can only survive under the sword of the Thousand Leaves army. If you want to win Tianfang Nightly Lake." Yi Ro crooked her hand at Fang Yen and said, "Again." Chapter 218. It looks like this woman isn't Mr. Fang's mother. Tang Cheng finally realized something was wrong and said, "We were deceived by Mr. Fang." Qin Etienne was speechless. "It's not us who were deceived by Mr. Fang, it's you idiots who were deceived by Mr. Fang, okay? I didn't believe it from the very beginning." Chiba Kori turned to look at Qin Etienne and asked in English, "What happened? This woman, why did she come and beat up Mr. Fang Yen? In front of so many students? Isn't that a very rude thing to do?" Chiba Akari didn't understand Huaxia's language and couldn't hear the conversation between Fang Yen and Yi Ro on the stage, so she didn't know that this matter was closely related to her father, Chiba Kori. "This is a free sparring session between martial artists of Huaxia," Qin Etienne said. "Killing a person every 10 steps, unstoppable for 1,000 miles. Fencing, chivalrous, fearless. This is the demeanor of a true martial artist." Tang Cheng didn't think so. It was obvious that teacher Fang had done something shameful, and the girl came to his door to retaliate by beating him up. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. This saying was true. Mr. Fang was beaten up like this, but in Qin Etienne's eyes, it was still a sparring session. Was there such a hero? Of course, Tang Cheng wasn't stupid. He wouldn't expose Qin Etienne's disguise in front of his international friends. He leaned back and spoke to Chiba Kori with Qin Etienne between them. Martial artists value freedom the most. Freedom of thought, spirit, and behavior is the only way to become a true martial arts master. It was normal for martial arts practitioners to draw their swords to lend a helping hand when they saw injustice. Fighting over a disagreement was a common occurrence. It doesn't matter to them where they fight or who the spectators are. Seeing Qin Etienne glance at him, Tongqing's heart beat faster. He said, "Teacher Fang Yen is an extremely rare Tai Chi master. After his deeds spread, it's natural that some people came to challenge him. Huaxia is a country where everyone loves martial arts." "Thank you, Tangqing-san," Chiba Kori said gratefully. "I understand. Because of teacher Fang Yan's reputation, there will always be people coming to challenge him, right?" She thought of her father. When her father had just started his career, he had often encountered such challenges. However, ever since her father became the #1 swordsman in Japan, there were fewer and fewer challenges like this. In the end, there were no more. When the distance between you and your opponent is very close, they will be jealous of you and do everything possible to surpass you. When you leave your opponents far behind, they will only envy you and worship you. This is human nature. Does this mean that teacher Fang Yen is not strong enough? Chiba Kori thought to herself. Then, the match between father and teacher Fang Yen. Father will not lose, right? "What a powerful woman," Chiba Kori said as she looked at Yi Ro on the stage. "Is that so?" Qin Etienne had a bright smile on his face. Fang Yan's expression turned extremely solemn. He looked at Yi Ro, who was waving at him, and asked in a deep voice, "How strong is she?" "Very, very strong. You know?" The old drunkard knows. "Has the Chiba army come to Huaxia before?" 10 years ago, the old drunkard traveled to Japan to challenge the 13 sword sects on the island. He fought with the Chiba army, Yi Ro said. He lost. The old drunkard said, "The Chiba army's swordplay back then wasn't mature enough," Yi Ro said. I understand, Fang Yan said with a nod. This time I'll do my best. He crossed his legs slightly and drew a circle with the tips of his toes. He stretched out his arms and moved up and down like a bird flapping its wings. While defending, he returned to the true state of meditation. Fang Yan's mind was calm, and his 7 senses were one. He forgot about everything around him. This wasn't a student's classroom, and he wasn't standing in an auditorium with hundreds of people. He was on a flat grassland. He was on a dangerous mountain peak where he could reach out and pick up the sun and the moon. He was on the bank of the Yangtze River, and he was on a vast beach. He forgot himself. He forgot who he was, what he came for, and why he left. He didn't know how to scheme or plot. He didn't ask for the cause or effect. He and Tai Chi became one. I am Tai Chi, I mean Tai Chi this time. Fang Yan chose to take the initiative to attack. He used the Fang Plum Blossom steps and circled around Yi Rou. He walked faster and faster, and his body gradually became illusory like a phantom. The arc of his arms also moved faster and faster, like a fan with the highest horsepower. If one paid close attention, they would find that the track of Fang Yan's running was a circle, and the angle of his arms was a circle. There was no circle, no Tai Chi, and Fang Yan and Yi Rou formed the yin and yang of Tai Chi. Their feet landed silently, and the white smoke rolled. The light above their heads was still so bright. However, in front of everyone, under the eyes of countless people, Fang Yan and Yi Rou's bodies disappeared just like that. They formed a circle and were enveloped by a substance that was unknown, whether it was dust or white gas. It was airtight. The audience didn't understand what had happened at all, and they also felt that the plot was getting worse and worse. Because they couldn't understand it or see it clearly. It was still as wonderful as the punches they had seen before. It was even worse than the scene where Yi Rou hit Fang Yan's head with a textbook. What on earth are they doing? Just as everyone was looking on in bewilderment, the sound of a huge explosion suddenly and violently rushed into their ears. Boom! The white smoke dispersed. Everyone felt their eardrums hurt. Fang Yan and Yi Rou finally appeared in front of everyone again. What was different was that Yi Rou stood still, while Fang Yan was pushed to the corner of the wall several meters away by the curtain. Fang Yan's mouth and nose were bleeding, and he seemed to be seriously injured. That's it. This stunt is too fake, isn't it? Is this the legendary big gas explosion? If it weren't for the weird and depressing atmosphere, some people would have jumped up and said that they should change the channel. What the hell is this? Is that all? Yi Rou looked at Fang Yan in the distance and said, the law of integration of yin and yang in the Tai Chi state? Is that all? Fang Yan's mouth and nose were bleeding, and his heart was bleeding. He did use the law of integration of yin and yang in the Tai Chi state. I am Tai Chi, I mean Tai Chi. Everything in the world is Tai Chi. His steps were circular, and so were his palm techniques. He rotated along Yi Rou, trying to use his yang pole to integrate Yi Rou's yin pole. The law of integration of yin and yang. As long as Yi Rou was integrated with him, she would be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. It was up to Fang Yan to fight, kill, kiss, or touch her breasts. It was easy to get out of the circle, but difficult to get into the circle. It was easy to get out of the circle, but difficult to get into the circle. It was not standing still, but moving forward and retreating shoulder to shoulder. It could be as fast as a watermill, and the clouds were like dragons, wind, tigers, and elephants. It sounded profound, but in simple words, Fang Yan wanted to encircle Yi Rou with the Tai Chi circle, so that the two of them could be integrated into a circle, and then he could control and molest her. Oh, he didn't molest her. As a result, Yi Rou refused Fang Yan's integration and slapped him in the face. The yin pole was too strong, and the yang pole was too weak. Facing a tough woman like Yi Rou, Fang Yan was in so much pain that he wanted to hit his head against the wall. Only aliens can deal with her, right? Fang Yan thought. Yi Rou raised a finger to Fang Yan and said, "Congratulations, you have a chance to win." Again, Fang Yan said fiercely, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. This time, he still took the initiative to rush toward Yi Rou, who was standing still in the center of the circle. Boom! Fang Yan flew out again. His back hit the desk on the stage that was used to hold the textbooks. Before the desk could fall, it was already broken into pieces, wooden pieces flying everywhere. 2 chances. Yi Rou stood still and raised 2 fingers to Fang Yan. Fang Yan jumped up from the ground like a carp and pounced on Yi Rou again. Boom, Fang Yan flew out again. Clang. His body slammed into the wall of the auditorium, creating a hole in the thick wall. Sand and dirt fell as if it had just experienced a slight earthquake. Fang Yan's hair was messy, and his clothes were ragged. There were numerous cuts on his face and body, which made him look miserable. He leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. The corner of his mouth was still bleeding. His nose seemed to be cut open, and the blood flowed out more rapidly. He couldn't move, and he didn't want to move. Yi Rou finally left her original position. She took a few steps back and retreated to the edge of the stage. She looked at Fang Yan and stretched out 3 fingers. Her voice sounded cold and inhuman. She said, 3 chances. But only 3 chances. Fang Yan, you are too weak. She picked up the language textbook from the ground. It was taken from a student's desk when she wanted to knock Fang Yan's head. With a light tap of her toes, she leaped off the stage. She looked like a beautiful black butterfly. She put the textbook on the boy's desk and said, "Thank you." Then, under the gaze of countless people, she held her head high and walked toward the entrance of the auditorium in her high-heeled shoes with slender and sharp heels. Cluck, cluck, cluck. The sound was crisp and sweet. Every sound seemed to knock on the hearts of all the people present. Hua! The door of the auditorium was opened. Bang! The door of the auditorium was closed again. Vomit! Yi Rou couldn't bear it anymore. She spat out a mouthful of blood. In the school field, in a place where no one could see. Chapter 219. Chut, chut, chut. It was the sound of shoes stepping on the grass. It was subtle and clear, indicating that the woman walking was very relaxed. Yi Rou knew that it was a woman coming. And it was a young woman. That kind of joyful mood, the almost silent footsteps, and the faint and fresh fragrance from her body couldn't be faked by a woman in her late 30s. What kind of person is this girl who can approach me so calmly and directly after witnessing my fierceness and violence when I beat people? Yi Rou was really a little curious. He turned around abruptly and met a pair of eyes that were as black as ink. What a beautiful pair of eyes. The pupils were like the eyes of a 1,000-year-old dragon hidden in the deep sea, and the whites of the eyes were like the ice crystal that could only appear after being nourished by the polar snow mountain for tens of thousands of years. The black was so black and the whites were so pure. There was a dragon's eye inlaid in the middle of the ice crystal. No one could resist such eyes, right? Yi Rou had been practicing martial arts since she was a child. She ate grains, drank mountain spring fruit juice, sweated to detoxify, and washed her meridians. Her body was clean and her heart was clear. Yi Rou usually boasted that she had ethereal temperament and bright eyes, but compared with the girl in front of her, she felt a little ashamed. How does she look like this? She wore a white shirt and a checkered skirt. Maybe because of the cold weather, she wore a black half-open sweater. She wore a special school uniform, but it was really hard to treat such a girl as an ordinary high school student. Is it hard? Qin Yiqian looked at Yi Rou with a smile and asked, "What do you want to say?" Yi Rou stared at Qin Yiqian coldly. "What's wrong with this little girl? Is it because I beat up her teacher Fang Yan, so she followed me to avenge Fang Yan? She can kill such a delicate and lovely girl with one slap." "Thank you," Qin Yiqian said. She bowed slightly to Yi Rou and said, "Thank you for everything you have done for Fang Yan." "You called him Fang Yan?" Yi Rou sneered and said, "Do you hate him that much? I beat him up like a dog in front of hundreds of teachers and students, and you chased after me to express your gratitude? You are really a woman who is not good at expressing herself." With a gentle and friendly smile on his face, Qin Yiqian said, "I came all the way here just to help Fang Yan improve his strength and let him realize that he still needs to work harder. Even if I get injured, I don't care. I'm sure he'll be very grateful if he knows about this, right? Help him increase his strength?" In order to motivate him to work harder? Yi Wen sneered, "What a joke. What treasure do you think he is? What does his life have to do with me? I don't think you can understand my relationship with him. Beating him up every year is one of my few pleasures. I think he should be used to it by now, right?" "Really?" Qin Etienne was stunned and said, "I really envy the relationship between you two childhood friends. It seems that I have to upgrade your danger factor again." Yi Wen was angry and shouted, "Who the hell are you? It's such a simple fact. Can't you see it clearly?" Qin Etienne laughed. "I'm an admirer of Fang Yan." Yi Wen looked at Qin Etienne from head to toe with sharp eyes. This girl was extraordinary. When she shouted just now, she had used half of her sight. If it was an ordinary person who was not mentally strong or had a weak aura, he might have fallen to the ground under her attack. If she increased the strength of her attack, she could even hurt the opponent's internal organs, eardrums, and eyes. It was the same as the lion roar of Buddhism. The more powerful the practitioner was, the more powerful the sight he could use. Of course, if the target was also powerful, he wouldn't be troubled by the sight attack. Yin was strong and Yang was weak, or Yin was weak and Yang was strong. Everything in the world was like this. However, Qin Etienne, who looked so soft and gentle to Yi Wenru, had endured the attack unscathed. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Just how strong is this girl's will? Yi Wen raised her head and said with a sneer, "An admirer of Fang Yan? You have bad taste." "I'm happy to hear that." Qin Etienne squinted his eyes and smiled. "Who wants to see the treasure they like being fought over by a group of people? I have nothing to say to a childish kid." Yi Wen turned around and was about to leave. Qin Etienne shouted. Yi Wen turned around and looked at Qin Etienne and said, "You can't beat me." "Of course." Qin Etienne nodded. "Even 100 Qin Etienne can't beat you." "Qin Etienne?" Yi Ro made a mental note of this strange yet majestic name. Heaven Reliance? What kind of woman could rely on heaven? Could she rely on heaven? Wasn't she afraid of being punished by the power of law of the 9 commandments of heavenly law? Qin Etienne handed over a white handkerchief and said, "I think you won't refuse this small gift." Yi Wen stared at Qin Etienne for a few seconds and took the handkerchief to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. Then she turned around and strode away. "What a proud woman," Qin Etienne muttered to herself as she watched Yi Ro's retreating figure. Tang Qing walked out of the dark corner and said, "I was worried that you would find her and fight with her." "Would I do such a stupid thing?" Qin Etienne asked. "You're right. Even if we don't fight, it's possible to quarrel." "Why would we quarrel?" Qin Etienne said with a smile. "Quarreling with her is fighting with her. Don't try to awaken a woman's possessive desire for an object or a man. It's a terrible thing. I'll thank her on behalf of Fang Yan. Isn't that better?" Tang Qing felt a chill down his spine. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. What are these women thinking all day long? "Mr. Fang, tonight's incident is really a bit big. A hole was made in the roof of the auditorium, and even a large part of the wall was caved in." Li Mingqiang sat in front of Fang Yan cautiously, as if he would run away at any time. Tonight was the first big class that Fang Yan gave to the freshmen. As a hardcore ally and close friend of Fang Yan, of course he had to take time to come and support him. He also thought that if Fang Yan couldn't control the situation, he would stand up for Fang Yan with his authority as the dean of teaching for many years. Wouldn't Fang Yan look at him in a different light and rely on him more? What happened in the end completely shocked him. He didn't have a chance to lend his authority to Fang Yan. Instead, he watched Fang Yan being beaten in an awe-inspiring manner. Why was being beaten in an awe-inspiring manner? Putting himself in Fang Yan's shoes, if Li Mingqiang was in that position, he would have either been sent flying or smashed into the roof and wall, creating a large hole. If that was the case, Li Mingqiang would have gone to see Guanyin Bodhisattva long ago. But Fang Yan took it head-on and was still alive and well. If that was the case, how strong must teacher Fang Yan be? Li Mingqiang was afraid that if he said something wrong, Fang Yan would suddenly reach out and slap him to death. It would be like slapping a mosquito to death. The students were also very surprised. They felt that this was really too inconceivable. I think this matter will soon spread within the school, and even the whole of Huaqing or even a wider area will be talking about it. I was worried that it would have some unnecessary impact on Mr. Fang's work and life, so I took the initiative to come out and explain that this was a project of teacher Fang Yan and a film company. Of course, I didn't explain too specifically, so that everyone could make their own associations and then supplement and process it to convince themselves. Li Mingqiang looked at Fang Yan's cold expression and said with a smile, "I don't know if Mr. Fang is satisfied with this way of handling it." Fang Yan looked up at Li Mingqiang and said, "This is real. There is no need to explain anything. Are you worried about causing panic? Let the students know that this kind of thing is normal and they will get used to it. If we deny the existence of Huaxia's Kung Fu, how can we spread it?" Li Mingqiang's heart was in his throat. It's over. Fang Yan is not satisfied with the way he handled it. He won't hit me, right? He won't slap me to the wall or kick me to the roof, right? However, I still have to thank Director Li. I'm very sorry about tonight's matter. I didn't explain it to the school in advance. Sorry for troubling you. Fang Yan said apologetically. It's nothing, it's nothing. Li Mingqiang waved his hand. No students were injured, and it opened the eyes of the students. Until now, they are still very excited and kept talking about tonight's big class. Will the next big class follow this standard? No, Fang Yan said. The next big class will only be the content before I was beaten. Then the students will be very sorry. Li Mingqiang said. Director Li, I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Li Mingqiang realized that he had made a fatal mistake. How could he encourage Fang Yan to be beaten again? This time he lost face in front of so many students. Next time he would lose face in front of even more students. Who would want to do that? I'm afraid the students will have opinions. After all, tonight's matter will definitely be spread out. Other classes will also know the content of the class. Fang Yan's eyes glanced at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, who stood in the corner of the room and didn't dare to breathe. He said, Director Li's words also make sense. Next time, let's change the standard. Chapter 220. Did Mr. Fang agree? Li Mingqiang said happily. He was a great director who would put his life and death aside for the students' benefit. Because when he said that, Fang Yan could slap him to death at any time. According to the previous standard, Fang Yan would be beaten by Yi Rou again. Fang Yan's heart was boiling with anger. He felt his temper was getting better and better. Even now, Li Mingqiang was still alive and kicking in front of him, ready to dig a hole to bury him. What standard should I change to? Do I still need the girl in black to cooperate with me? The school doesn't have her contact information. Do I still need Mr. Fang to communicate with her? Fang Yan didn't want to communicate with Yi Rou. He didn't mind sending Li Mingqiang to communicate with Yi Rou. That is, if I can find her resting place. As for the expenses, the school should be able to reimburse us. If Teacher Fang has the receipt, we can also reimburse him for the appearance fee. This is for the sake of the school students. We can't possibly let Teacher Fang pay for it himself. But next time, we must be more careful. Safety first. Don't let a situation like hanging your head from the roof or smashing your body against the wall happen again, right? It's too violent. I'm worried about the physical condition of Mr. Fang and the girl, and the students can't accept it. What I mean is, I get beaten this time, and next time I hit someone, Fang Yan interrupted Director Li Mingqiang and said seriously. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other, and their heads were about to drill into the soil. They could feel the strong murderous look in Fang Yan's eyes when he looked at them. Oh, next time it's Mr. Fang's turn to hit that girl? I can't beat her. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I have another candidate. I'll inform Director Li after I communicate with them. Director Li, you've worked hard for most of the night. Go back and rest. Sure. Then I won't disturb Mr. Fang's rest. Li Mingqiang quickly got up. Mr. Fang, hurry up and rest. The wound on your face. It doesn't matter. I have medicine. Fang Yan said. After Li Mingqiang left, Fang Yan coldly snorted and shouted, Fang Yingying, Fang Haohan, you two come here. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan knew that they couldn't escape, so they bowed and stood in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yingying smiled and said, Junior Martial Uncle, you must be thirsty after talking so much tonight, right? I'll get you a glass of water. After saying that, he turned and ran towards the kitchen. Junior Martial Uncle, you must be tired after being hit so hard tonight, right? I'll get you some water to wash your feet. Fang Haohan turned and ran towards the bathroom. You two come back. Fang Yan shouted angrily. Fang Yingying stared at Fang Haohan fiercely. This idiot, why did you mention my sore spot? They stood in front of Fang Yan again. They looked away and didn't dare to look at Fang Yan's eyes. Where is she? Fang Yan asked. Junior Martial Uncle, Hero and I searched the whole school, but we didn't find Miss Ye's trace. I think she may have left. Fang Yingying replied in a low voice. You know Miss Ye's temper. If she doesn't want to do something, no one can force her. Fang Yan was silent. Yi Ro came suddenly and left so suddenly? After a while, he said, Tell me, what's going on? Fang Yingying didn't answer. Fang Haohan looked at Fang Yingying and didn't answer either. What? Are you stubborn? Fang Yan sneered. You heard my conversation with Director Li, right? I'll change the standard in the next class. I was hit by Yi Ro tonight. Next time, you two accompany me to the class. Plop. Fang Haohan knelt down in front of Fang Yan. He lowered his head and said with a bitter expression, Junior Martial Uncle, it's all Fang Yingying's fault. You asked him to call for help, but he called Miss Yi. He knew Miss Yi would come, but he didn't tell us in advance. If he had told me in advance, I would have told Junior Martial Uncle in advance and asked Junior Martial Uncle to escape in advance and get ready for the fight. But he even hid it from me. Tonight on the stage, he wanted me to hide it for him. I felt guilty and felt that it was a betrayal to Junior Martial Uncle. So, I'm going to expose Fang Yingying as a traitor. He betrayed me and Junior Martial Uncle. He is an undercover agent that Miss Yi put beside us. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but afraid of a pig-like teammate. What happened to advancing and retreating together? Didn't they say that they would live and die together? Junior Martial Uncle hadn't tortured him yet, but Fang Haohan betrayed him? Fang Yingying's face turned pale and he quickly knelt down in front of Fang Yan. He said hurriedly, Junior Martial Uncle, don't believe Fang Haohan's words. He's purposely framing me. He's doing this for revenge. Last time, he bought 5 peaches and I ate one more. He's been holding a grudge against me ever since. Junior Martial Uncle, I did call Master, but I didn't expect Miss Yi to answer the phone. I didn't call Miss Yi on purpose. You know me. I'm fat but I'm cowardly. I don't even have the courage to talk to Miss Yi. Why would I take the initiative to call her? Fang Yingying hugged Fang Yan's leg and cried bitterly. He looked extremely miserable. Junior Martial Uncle, please look into the details and help me wash away the shame and return my innocence. I can't let Fang Haohan, that despicable villain, succeed in his conspiracy and take advantage of me. Bang! Bang! Fang Yan kicked the two of them and said, It's decided. Next time, you two come with me to the big class. Junior Martial Uncle? The two of them cried and fell to the ground. It seemed that they couldn't run away from a beating. Have you heard? Last night, during the big class, teacher Fang Yan fought with a woman in black for 300 rounds. Are you serious? He did that kind of shameless thing in the class? What are you thinking about? I'm talking about the fight. Teacher Fang Yan was beaten by my queen. That was a movie, right? Must be a movie? Think about it. If there was no steel wire, how could a person fly so high? It should be real, right? At that time, teacher Fang Yan was giving a lecture to everyone. How could he have time to tie the steel wire? Because when he came out, it was already done. Think about it. He stood on the stage during the class and didn't step down, right? It didn't matter if Fang Yan liked it or not. The story of Fang Hua's fight with the Leather Queen spread throughout Rosefinch Secondary. Some students posted the photos they took with their mobile phones on the internet, which attracted a lot of netizens' clicks and comments. Most people were skeptical about this and felt that it was impossible. It was just like the video of a Tai Chi descendant gently pushing a dozen strong men in white and making them fly backward in all kinds of exaggerated postures. It was fake, malicious hype, and discrediting Wuxia Kung Fu. Of course, there were a few people who thought it was true. These people were Rosefinch's students who had witnessed the scene. Because the scene at that time was too surprising and shocking, even if Li Mingqiang later explained that it was a collaboration between teacher Fang Yan and the film company, they still didn't want to believe that it was so simple. However, their words were easily drowned out by the criticism and ridicule, unable to cause any ripples. Of course, there was another small group that was paying attention to this matter. After Chiba Kir went back, she told her father, Chiba Hajime, what had happened that night. Chiba Hajime and Fang Yan had come into contact, and he had even tried to attack Fang Yan with his claw sword. Fang Yan had dodged it. Just dodging it made Chiba Hajime look at Fang Yan in a new light. It was a habit he had developed over the years to stain his sword with blood. The fact that Fang Yan could dodge his killer move without being hurt proved that he had the strength to fight him. This was also the reason why he took the initiative to set a 1-month deadline with Fang Yan at the top of One Sword Peak. It should be noted that not everyone was qualified to be Chiba Hajime's opponent. Playing this kind of hype trick. He must be crazy to become famous, Chiba Hajime said with a sneer. Qing-in, what do you think? Chiba Hajime asked. Qing-in, whose whole face was hidden in the black cloak, looked at the picture on the computer and said, he does have the strength to do so. Yes, he does have the strength to do so, Chiba Hajime said. If he can't face his opponent, he will never be able to determine the gap between him and his opponent. Father, if Miss Fang Yan is really as powerful as you said? Chiba Hajime pointed at Yi-Ro in the picture and said, then she beat Miss Fang Yan. I saw with my own eyes that Miss Fang Yan couldn't fight back in front of her. Doesn't this mean that the woman is more powerful? Compared to her father, who is more powerful? Chiba Hajime looked at Yi-Ro's proud and pretty face in the picture and the fierce light in her eyes. He said with a smile, the world is black and the earth is yellow, and the universe is primitive. The sun and the moon rise and fall, and the stars and constellations are arranged. The clouds bring rain, and the dew turns into frost. Gold is born in Lishui, and jade is born in Kangong. 5,000 years of culture and millions of miles of fertile land nourished them. It's not surprising that 3 dragons and 2 phoenixes are born. Father. Chiba Hajime was full of resentment. His father valued Fang Yan Yi-Ro and the other Wuxia monkeys so much? Kill the dragons and kill the phoenixes, Chiba Hajime said heroically. I have the North Star Sword, and the fate of the world is in my hands. You're tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.